You'll be the first one here, so there's already another PowerPoint minimized, so just make sure you get the right one. And
The only bad thing exchange, I think, is the king. But I don't think that's what it is, because they did a blood transfusion. Gave her the.
I'm going to call the October 21st meeting of the West Des Moines City Council to order and invite you all to stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, please sign in.
four members present.
Okay, Ryan, have there been any changes to the agenda?
We do have a couple changes. Item 4H, special assessments for nuisance abatement. There's an amended resolution with a memo on the dais tonight because one of the properties is removed from the list. And then item 7G, related to purchase of property at 3535 Westtown Parkway, has been removed from the agenda.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, moving on to Citizens Forum. Citizens Forum is a time for anybody to discuss an item that is not either part of new business or public hearings. I would assume that there are a number of residents that are here for the Ashworth Road project that may want to speak. This will be your time for that. But we are going to start out by having staff come up and please give us an overview of this issue as concisely as they possibly can. So Brian Hemasath, our city engineer, and I don't know if Eric Peterson, our traffic engineer, wants to come up and give you some moral support or hide in the back, I don't know. So, all right, Brian, with that, the floor is yours, and then we're going to open up to anybody that would like to address the council on the item.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Brian Hemasath, city engineer, and then Eric Peterson, principal traffic engineer, will be coming up to join me to actually do a majority of the presentation. He is our expert. Just to start off, though, about a year ago, the city council, I believe it was at a council meeting, directed staff to look at what we're calling a pilot project of restriping Ashworth Road from 1st Street to 19th Street. And then before we did that, we did some, looked at the street, we looked at speeds and traffic accidents and a lot of different criteria. And we basically did a before and after analysis of the 4 narrower lanes and the three lane restriping. We're going to be presenting on that before and after to you. That's what Eric's going to be doing right now. So just as a reminder, the vote on item 5C is it's a motion to approve the general design criteria from First to 50th Street. And staff is recommending that we go to a 3-lane with standard size lane widths. And after the vote, what we recommend doing is having a public meeting with the folks that live between 19th and 23rd that'll be affected by that first project, and then going over with them how we can look at different alternatives to minimize the amount of right-of-way impact we have with them. And some of that's already been done in the weeks leading up to this meeting. We've had some meetings with property owners to talk about different ways that we can minimize right-of-way.
Well, and remind me, if you will, too, because we've been dealing with this for a while now, and I feel like we've had at least 2 different workshops,
Correct.
and you recently had another public meeting
In September, yes.
in September, and you also met with residents individually as recently as this last Friday for
Correct.
a couple hours after the work hours.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Yep, so with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to Eric to go over the before and after analysis. And with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Okay. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Eric Peterson, Principal Traffic Engineer. I'm going to go over this Ashworth Road reconfiguration study that we've been working on, and we've done over the last year since we've restriped a portion of Ashworth Road. I'll go through quite a bit, so please just hold questions till the end. I'll probably address some of these as we go farther along. A little bit of background on Ashworth Road. We consider this a minor arterial street. It spans the entire city. It's one of the only streets that we have that spans all the way from 1st Street all the way out to 98th Street and goes entire east-west like that. Carries a lot of trucks, buses, a lot of schools in this area, and so we see a lot of buses throughout the day using Ashworth Road. It also parallels I-235, so we see at times when there's an incident on I-235, we'll see traffic diverting down to Ashworth and coming into West Des Moines that way, or going down to Grand and into downtown Des Moines via Ashworth Road. A couple years ago, we came forward to you guys and we talked about some improvements that we wanted to make to the overall corridor from 1st to 50th Street, envisioning a multi-year, multi-phase project, addressing some deteriorating pavement conditions that we've got out there. A lot of the pavement sections are past their useful life. Also looking at a 4 to 3 lane conversion for the majority of the corridor to address some of the safety issues that we have. Also looking at rebuilding to current design standards, so rebuilding sidewalks so they meet ADA requirements, and rebuilding lanes so that they're at least the minimum lane widths. Making improvements to traffic signals, the railroad crossing we have near 1st Street, and again, sidewalks and anything else along the corridor that needs to be upgraded with the construction. We had initially proposed a side path trail, if you remember, on the north side. Direction at those council workshops 2 years ago was to leave that out of the current project, so we're still showing that out of the current project. After those discussions and workshops, we decided we would do a trial phase, basically roughly from 1st Street to 19th Street, and study the performance before and after, and study, will it work as a 3-lane roadway? We converted that almost exactly 1 year ago, just over a year ago, and looked at several different factors. So we looked at crashes, we looked at speeds, we looked at delay. We talked to a lot of folks that drive it, that live near it, that use it, whether they're bus drivers for the school or for DART. We talked with some of our police officers. We talked with our fire and EMS crews that drive this in emergencies to get their feedback on what's been working better, 3-lane versus 4-lane. There's been a lot of safety research on 4 to 3-lane conversions. So this first section, I'll talk about the crashes. And what they're generally finding is that it's really 2 main things that create a safer roadway with 3 lanes. Number one, you're decreasing conflict points with the fewer number of lanes. And you're also improving visibility of oncoming traffic. And so anytime you can do that, if you can decrease conflict points and improve visibility, you're going to make a road safer. And so The safety research is very clear on that. There's a mountain of safety research available out there. And in the traffic engineering industry, it's generally common knowledge that a 4 to 3 lane conversion is going to make things safer overall for a roadway. We looked at the data from Iowa DOT as well as crash reports from the West Des Moines Police Department. We've got over 10 years of data on this corridor, on anything that's been reported from 1st out to 50th Street. One thing I will note that it doesn't include unreported crashes. So if somebody gets into an accident and they don't report it to the police, there'd be no way of knowing that crash ever happened. Also, if something happens like 2 vehicles strike mirrors, we hear that a lot in these narrower lanes. It's going to be no injuries, very little damage. Those might not even be getting reported to us. So we may have no idea, how many crashes. We know they're happening, but we have no way of measuring how many crashes are actually happening out there if they're that minor of a crash. Typically, when we do a before and after study like this, we like to remove those extremes, those outliers that could skew things. So we'll typically take out, if we've got like a blizzard condition, we've got a crash, or somebody hits a deer, or there's an OWI type crash, some other abnormal situation. I know on this stretch we had a case years ago where there was a road rage incident and somebody purposefully ran into somebody. Those type of crashes we'll remove because they're not really normal conditions that we really want to compare true apples to apples. We didn't look at the outside of the trial phase, so where we were transitioning them to 3 lanes, or any point out of that, we left that out because we wanted to look at, again, the 4 to 3 lane, in those same sections there to see apples to apples comparison on crashes. And what we found is before, when it was just a 4 lane, we were averaging about 7 crashes per year over that roughly 9 to 10 years of data. And on average, we were seeing 2 to 3 of those crashes having injuries. When we looked at those crash reports, we could see that about 40% of them were due to either having kind of that narrower and tighter geometry or having no left turn lane, could be contributing to those type of crashes. In the 1 year after, we've had 4 crashes with 3 lanes. Again, when we look at those 4 lanes, it wasn't due to the 3 lane, it was just your standard rear end crashes. Somebody didn't yield to somebody, and none of those crashes resulted in injuries. It's only been 1 year of after data, and typically we like to see more than that, but definitely looking at that 1 year, it definitely indicates that crashes have been reduced with the 3 lane. I also want to note that if we were to go back and take those OWI crashes and those extreme examples and include those and just see what happens, you still see the same reduction. So we also wanted to look at speed on the corridor, and generally research has shown a decrease in speeds when you go from a 4 lane to a 3 lane conversion. So we wanted to go out there, we wanted to test that. We set up the same speed data collectors at 2 different locations before and after the road was converted. And what we found is that speeds are slightly lower at both those locations for the 3 lane configuration. On your average speed and 85th percentile speed were about 1 to 2 mile an hour different, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when we looked at those excessive speeds, the percent that are going more than 5 over, more than 10 over, more than 15 over, those are where we really saw some reductions. And those are where a lot of times when you have your crashes, it's that mix of high speed versus low speed traffic that's mixing together. So seeing that reduction in those excessive speeds was really promising. In terms of traffic flow, we've got really good visibility of this whole corridor. We have traffic cameras at 1st, 8th, and 19th Street, and so we can see the whole corridor. The cameras here on the right are from 19th looking east. We recorded multiple days and times. We looked at during the school year, we looked during the summer months. We really wanted to get an idea of different times of the day and different ways that the road was operating. Of course, then we had multiple drive-throughs, field observation of actually being out there and witnessing it as well. So before, here's some pictures of some of the stuff that we were seeing a lot. A lot of times, you see the issues with the narrower lanes. You're seeing buses and trucks that are having a hard time staying in their lanes. Again, these buses are about 8.5 feet wide. That doesn't include the mirrors. And so when you include the mirrors, now you're about 10.5 foot wide on a bus. So they had a really hard time staying in their lane. You'd have people that would be passing these buses and have to go across the double yellow center line into oncoming traffic, try to get around these larger vehicles. We also saw, of course, a lot of times where people would be turning left off of Ashworth Road and they'd be backing up cars or causing conflicts because they're stopped in a through lane on the inside. And we saw one instance where a fire truck was going through on an emergency and straddling that double yellow center line, trying to get through traffic there as they try to get to the outside. Since it's been a 3-lane, we've also done the same observations. We haven't seen any major backups been occurring in this section of roadway. We saw some minor delays when you get like a UPS truck, like in the top figure, that stops there temporarily to deliver a package, and those vehicles have to, use caution and kind of pass around that large vehicle. It didn't really create any major delays, but there were some minor delays if that through lane was blocked temporarily. And of course, drivers are better able to stay in their lanes. So we didn't notice all those instances of buses getting out of their lane or people passing in oncoming traffic to get around. One thing we did notice at the transition zone at 19th Street, we had to temporarily modify lanes there to get the 4 lanes to transition to 3 lanes. We did see a couple instances where people were going eastbound in that outside lane that's signed and marked for right turn only, but they would keep on going straight and create some potential conflicts there as a result. We didn't have any crashes of that sort, but we did notice that happening. Again, signs, markings are all there, but you're relying on that to help guide traffic to get over and then come back. So only temporary. It's not really an issue with the 3-lane because it's purely just a temporary setup of how we had to do it for this trial phase. We also looked at the capacity of the roadway. So a 3-lane road generally can handle about 15,000 vehicles per day. So a roadway like Ashworth Road, when you've got traffic signals like this, is about 15. Currently for this stretch between 1st and 19th, we've got roughly about 7,000 to 9,000 vehicles per day. So we're below that. And if we were to account for future traffic growth in this area, which you might say, well, this is a mostly developed area, where's all that traffic going to grow from? And when we're seeing that, we're talking about more like the pandemic. We're still seeing some rebound effect from that. We're still not quite up to the level that we were before COVID. We're also seeing more redevelopment and infill area. The Val Gate district, for example, is redeveloping. More of those areas are going to start redeveloping. So we do expect that traffic volumes will grow a little bit. They're not going to go wild. They're not going to double or triple out here by any means, but it will grow. We also know that as I-235 gets more congested in the future, more and more people are going to say, you know what, I'm not going to go on the interstate. I'm going to take a little bit longer and use the city streets. And Ashworth Road is one of those parallel streets. So looking at 1st to 19th, we're seeing anywhere from 13 to 14,000-ish vehicles per day on this stretch. Again, still below that overall capacity of the overall roadway. A lot of times where you're restricted is at your signalized intersection. So we wanted to look at 8th and Ashworth, which previously had 2 through lanes east-west. When this was modified, it went down to 1 through lane east-west plus a right turn lane for eastbound and westbound traffic. So we were able to restripe that and get that to operate this way. And we wanted to look at how is that functioning. We've got traffic analysis software that we use to analyze things like delay and capacity. So we use that software under different scenarios, including morning rush hour, afternoon rush hour. We looked at a morning rush hour when there had been a crash on I-235 and we saw that extra traffic coming down. And then we also looked at future. So we looked at that future growth and looking at what happens when that extra growth in the future comes and hits Ashworth Road. Can it still handle that? And what we were seeing is that we were seeing slight increases to delay when we did a 3-lane road, but still within that reasonable range, even when we're adding on that extra traffic. We also spoke a lot to the public. We'd take phone calls, emails. They would talk to us on different projects, and they'd say, hey, by the way, Ashworth Road. And so we would hear a lot about the project, and most of what we've received has been very, very positive. When we've talked to residents, we've talked to drivers, bus drivers, emergency responders, they've been pleased with the 3-lane configuration. They prefer the 3-lane over a 4-lane configuration, including a lot of residents that came to the public meeting that we had about a month ago who said they were initially opposed to the project and didn't like the idea of a 3-lane, and now they actually prefer the 3-lane roadway. Of the few negative comments that we did receive during the course of this year's study, most of them were actually related to the lack of a side path trail. They really said, man, it would have been really nice if we could have got that side path trail in there on the north side. So in full transparency, I wanted to add that in there as well. But that was the most common negative complaint that we received, not really a complaint about the 3-lane, more just man, it'd be really nice if we would have had that trail. So what our results, our findings are consistent with what we're seeing locally around Iowa and then nationally on 4 to 3-lane conversions. When you talk to the Iowa DOT, when you talk to Federal Highway, they call it a proven safety countermeasure. And that's their quote, which is really great when we're looking at how we're going to pay for improvements to Ashworth Road. It makes it a really great candidate for federal and state transportation grants, and it looks really good on applications when you've got a Ford 3-lane conversion as part of it. In fact, over the last couple of years, we've gone after STBG funds through the MPO, Surface Transportation Block Grant Funds, and we've been awarded $4.5 million already towards the Ashworth Road project to reconfigure this road and reconstruct this road. Out of all the STBG applications that were submitted across the metro, from Des Moines and Ankeny and Waukee, our project here on Ashworth was the highest scoring project out of all of those the last 2 years. And the 4-3 lane was a big part of that score. So looking back at the past year, we would say that the 4-3 lane conversion was a success. That the trial project that we did was successful. We've seen fewer crashes than the average that we've seen before that. We saw lower speeds, especially those excessive speeds. And although we saw slightly more delay at the cross streets, we were having enough capacity to still move that traffic at acceptable levels. And most of the public feedback that we've received has been in favor of the 3-lane. We know that not everybody is going to be in favor of it. Some people still won't be convinced, may never be convinced. But looking at it, what's the best thing to do? What's the safest thing to do? What's the thing that sets us up best for grant money? It's going to be the 3-lane configuration. So that's what we're still recommending for Ashworth Road, generally from 1st to 50th. The traffic volumes from the stretch that you're looking at here on the screen from 11th to 19th are very comparable to the section that we have from 22nd to 50th. So we feel very confident that it will still work in those other sections to the west. The only section is 19th to 22nd where our volumes do go up quite a bit because you get a lot of that northbound, southbound traffic that kind of does the weave through there and uses Ashworth for those 3 blocks to go north or south. So of course we will need other improvements like I talked about before, but the Ford 3-lane conversion is a vital aspect of that overall project. So with that, I'll open up to any questions that you might have for me.
Okay, does the council have any questions for Eric before we open it up to Citizens Forum? All right, Kevin, go ahead.
What is the plan for First Street down by Val Air? Because I've heard from several residents that when Val Air Ballroom is having an event down there, that traffic is horrible. And how do you get through when everybody's in the westbound lane coming off of First Street to go into Val Air, and then they're in the turn lane to go, as they're coming east, to go into Val Air. So how do we get traffic moving in those situations? Because I think with all the improvements that Val Air has done, we're going to see even more and more events down there, which obviously was their goal and the goal of the city. So how do we handle that?
Anytime we have like an issue like that, whether it's Val Air or it's a school where traffic is backing up from their internal site onto the roadway, the first thing that we try to do is we go to that property owner and work with them and say, what can we do to help get them in easier and faster so we don't have that issue at all. I've actually talked with the general manager of the Val Air. He and I had a good conversation as far as how they're adding in their gates, and so their gates weren't fully in yet, and so that was causing some delays for them. They are feeling like once they get their gates fully operational, that will help speed things along. I think they've also gone to a new ticketing mechanism, I believe, through an app or I haven't been there since they've done it, but they've done something through their phone where you can scan and get in easier that way. And so I think some of it is just people learning that, of what they need to do, where they need to park. And so I think some of it's just kind of the new aspect of those gates and that reader that.
What gates are you referring to? They have admission gates that raises up so you can let the traffic in?
So, and I haven't been there to know exactly how it works. My understanding is they've got gates internal to the site that they've installed here over the summer. And so, again, before they had somebody that was probably standing there, I'm assuming taking money for parking. Now they're going to have a gate system to help speed things along where you scan this, the gates open up and they can go in a lot faster. And so that was what he had explained to me.
So they're relying on technology, and as we know, technology never fails.
So, right. So a lot of it, and we'll go back and address and go back and revisit this again. We haven't dismissed it and said, okay, we're going to revisit it and see, is it really helping move things along? But if there is a car that's stopped out there on Ashworth, of course, the two-way left turn lane is not meant to be a passing lane, but if somebody's stopped there, people can use it to get around if they're using caution and getting around. And that's
my point, is that the turn lane is blocked by people wanting to come into Val Air. So there's no place to go.
Well, what we were seeing is people that were westbound would be stopped in the through lane and the eastbounders would be stopped in the left turn lane. So people would be able to get around and get through there for that, brief time frame at, 8 o'clock at night when that's right, the show's about to start and they're getting in. One thing that's fortunate about it is about 8 o'clock at night, traffic on Ashworth is pretty low as far as the through volume. So most of the traffic that's happening right at the start of showtime, most of that traffic's going to be people going to that event.
But if the show starts at 8 o'clock, they're showing up probably 6 or 6:30.
Some are, but the backup's not happening from 6:30 to 8.
Well, the worst case scenario, I mean, look at Wells Fargo Arena and what they've got going on there. They have the Des Moines police come and direct traffic during that time. If that's something that we need to do, then we'll take a look at that if there's a major problem in the area. That's something that the venue will just have to pay for if traffic is not moving the way that it should. But I've been to an event there and I didn't see that problem. I mean, traffic seemed to move in and out of there pretty good. Like you said, it was kind of 8 at night, maybe when it even began, and by the time it was done, it was like 10 at night or even later. And so there really weren't a lot of cars on the road. So
We still have a few years yet before we go and reconstruct that section. So we'll have a little bit of time to be able to observe that and continue to observe it, and then we can maybe make some additional improvements if needed to take care of that. So we've got some time to be able to do that for that section.
Okay, Councilwoman Hardman.
Thank you, Mayor. Did I hear you say in your presentation that public safety feels that this is a desirable option as it relates to potential accidents and traffic accidents? So is public safety endorsing this
Correct.
3-lane?
And we've talked to police and fire and EMS, and they've all said as far as responding to an event, if they're trying to get down Ashworth Road quickly to get to something, it's a lot easier to get in that center turn lane and go all the way down and everybody moves to the side. It's a lot easier than trying to navigate around 4 lanes when you got cars that, drivers don't know what to do, they stop, and all of a sudden that responder has to kind of weave around traffic and get through. So they've spoken in favor of the 3-lane configuration.
And did I hear you say at one time, Brian, that there was a resident that was picking up rear view, side view mirrors constantly because of tell me a little bit more about
Sure,
that
so-
anecdotal information.
Right, at the public meeting, one of the comments by one of the residents was that before the 3-lane conversion on that section from 1st to 19th, they would pick up a side view mirror from a car probably monthly. And I questioned that because I'm like, could that really be? And that property owner said, yes, absolutely. Monthly, I would be picking up side view mirrors from my front yard. So those are the types of
Cars
things.
swiping each
Yep,
other?
side swiping, and then that's stuff that doesn't get picked up on the accident reports that Eric is looking at, so.
Okay.
Okay, Councilman McKinney.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got, I think, 2 questions here, at least initially. I saw the image of the UPS truck parked there on the side of Ashworth, I don't know, looked like around 17th or so. I'd like to, have you, either of you had a chance to connect with the police department at all about maybe what the city might be able to do? I mean,
Well, it's illegal to park in the street like that. So the problem is when a vehicle's there, it's usually there for maybe a minute and a half. And to have the police there at the right time to catch them doing it, that's the difficult part. That's something Chief Scott and I have had conversation about. But if they did catch them doing that, they would definitely let them know or ticket them.
yeah, that's pretty important to me. And I was here for the September meeting, and there were a lot of folks that brought that up. And for me, it's going to be important that we have enforcement there. I was thinking to myself, it's not going to work out with people parked along the roadway, and I'm glad to hear that you've had those conversations, and I encourage further conversations to ensure that we don't have those sorts of situations. My second question relates to 23rd Street and left turns there. If you're heading west on Ashworth and you want to go to Fair Meadows and you want to take a left onto 23rd, how do you anticipate? I mean, we talked about this roughly a year ago. There were some questions. I'm just trying to get a better sense of what has been resolved, if anything, relative to whether you're going to be able to turn left there and go south, Or will there be a median of sorts to prevent that left turn? Has there been a determination in that regard?
There hasn't been because we haven't known whether or not we're going to go with the 3 or 4 lane option. So I don't know if Eric can provide any more.
I would just say
Insight on that.
it's one area that, yeah, as a 3-lane road, we know it might take something else along with it. Ideally, if you could go way back when and line up 22nd and 23rd, as opposed to having some offset streets like that, but obviously that ship has sailed. But looking at, what else can be done to improve that situation.
Okay. All right. I received a call on the way here tonight about 5 o'clock, and this constituent inquired, and I said that I would inquire this evening, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for these gentlemen before we open it up to citizens forum?
I just got to follow up.
Okay.
We've had residents that have talked about maybe keeping a 4-lane through between 19th and 23rd Street, I guess, or 22nd. And it's my understanding that, I guess there's still discussions about that, but there was nothing in the packet talking about it. So what are we, I guess the way I look at it, that this is, we're going to be voting on the design criteria.
Right.
What criteria are we voting on? Are we voting on, a way of keeping 4 lanes or somehow reducing the minimal amount of property that we're going to take from those 3 or 4 blocks? Or are we going to do what was presented back in September
Sure. So,
of last year?
yep. So back to your very first question about the 4 lane through that section of 19th to 22nd. We've looked at that a number of different ways. And one of the things that is different from the way it is today versus the way it would have to be to make it work with the 3 lanes on either side is a westbound or an eastbound driver going through both of those intersections would have to change lanes in order to continue to go straight through that area. That is not a normal driver expectation. And we anticipate there being issues with that as far as conflicts of vehicles not knowing what lane to be in and having to do that weave. And honestly, it's if we go with a 4 lane, we're going to end up getting right of way from every property owner between 19th and 22nd than we would just the right turn lanes with the 3 lane.
How far east and west are you going to have to go then? If you said that you're going to take from everybody. The plan, I guess, that you presented last year showed multiple feet on some of these properties. So are we talking 2 properties, 4 properties? I mean,
There's about 8 properties that right of way would need to be acquired from.
for
The 3 lane, if we put in the 2 right turn lanes at 19th and 22nd.
isn't that just about everybody that's up there?
No,
It's eight properties between 19th and 22nd.
right,
So everybody between 1st and 19th, it's existing roadway. Everybody from 23rd through 50th, it's existing roadway,
right,
Right.
existing footprint.
right. There may be some tweaks we have to do
Sure.
at the intersections to try to pull back the radii so trucks can make the turns, because it is a truck route. So we have to take that into consideration as well. But for the most part, the significant right-of-way acquisitions would be those areas.
And there will be some areas where the curbs could actually come in a little bit because of the current width. So
Okay.
not a lot, but it'd be a little bit coming in, so they'd actually gain a little bit of that green space in their yard.
And I know you guys, when you work on a design for a road, you try to pinch it as tight as possible. And the design that you come with is, I mean, it's very difficult to make any movements on that. I've worked on, I think, 60th Street, and there was somebody that was upset that, he didn't like the trail coming so close to his house, and he wanted to be moved like a foot in one direction, and we couldn't really do that because it made the utilities go underneath the concrete. But my understanding is this one, you guys have done the same thing, but you're constantly working to see what you can do to mitigate the amount of space that we need to take from these 8 property owners from 19th through 22nd, and you think you can get that reduced to some much more acceptable level?
We can. And we've talked about that with some of the property owners that we've talked to in the last couple of weeks. There's going to be trade-offs, though, if there is like a narrowing of the parking area from the sidewalk to the back of curb. There could be steeper driveways. There would be issues with where are we
Snow
going to put the
removal.
utilities? It could go under pavement. That causes issues. So there's going to be trade-offs. That's why I'm recommending after this vote that when we begin the design is to have a public meeting with these property owners so that we can talk through those things and see what is more acceptable to them, these trade-offs that we have, or
Well, and they're all going to have to agree together on something. There was also an issue with snow. We talked about trying to get creative and making the parking, if you will, a little bit shorter, but
Right.
then when the plow comes through, they're not just going to be removing that from their driveway entrance, but also from the sidewalk.
that's just one of the trade-offs that there would be if we narrowed that parking area up, yes.
Okay, so steeper driveways potentially, and
Yep.
snow, and then there's some issues with utilities being.
Drainage could be an
Drainage.
issue too. Like we could have some snow melt
But if
issues in the
if-
wintertime with ice, and there's things that I don't necessarily want to get into the weeds real far at the
Tonight, sure.
dais of this discussion, but there's a lot, having designed roadways for most of my career, that there's a lot of issues that we would have to work through. And then those are just things that the residents, we want to make sure that they understand that there is some trade-offs. But we're happy to talk through all those things with the property owners as part of this.
So if the property owner said, look, I don't care about that much more of a steep driveway, it's not that big of a deal, I don't care about the snow plow throwing snow on the sidewalk, I want to have less of my land taken for this project. Right now, my understanding is that we're talking about 11 to 12 feet on these 8 properties.
11 feet would be the maximum.
11 is the maximum. If ideal situation, and I'm not going to hold you to it, but how much more could you shrink that down from 11 to what? Can you cut that in half?
It's possible, but then there's a lot of trade-offs to that. Then there could be people that weren't having right-of-way acquisitions that will have right-of-way acquisitions because we have to shift it to the other side of the street. So
Sure.
those are the things we have to grapple with when
Okay.
we're having these discussions. So
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay. Councilman McKinney.
Yeah. I guess it stems off what you're saying, because we've talked several times on this, and I've talked to several of the folks in that area, specifically between 19th and 22nd. That's where my largest heartburn exists on this, literally heartburn. And so I can appreciate that there are concerns about putting utilities under concrete, right? In my estimation, I see it all the time, though, right? I work downtown, I see concrete, they have to break it and then fix it, right? You go to any major city, you got all the utilities underground. So it's going to be really important for me that we try to, and I know you are, I'm not saying you aren't, but I got to say this, get creative on how we can minimize that as much as possible while taking into consideration the ultimate impact on those homeowners. So, we shrink it down to the point where it's more acceptable, but you've got a driveway where you can't clear it with an average vehicle. That's not going to be acceptable on the use case. It may be acceptable on the amount of property that's acquired. And so it's really, important for me, again, to minimize as much as possible, work with those neighbors. And what I'd like to better understand now is I understand we've got this motion before, not a motion, but an item on the agenda would be a motion to approve some sort of design criteria between First and 50th, 3 lanes, right?
Yes.
And when we spoke on Friday, I shared I'm not quite clear yet on what our ultimate design will be between 19th and 22nd, and perhaps that's by design now, based upon what I'm hearing, that you intend to have a little bit more of a detailed conversation with the homeowners this process. So can you help me understand what we anticipate then? Will anything additional come before the council following this meeting, I'll call it, that you're having of those homeowners where, hey, we finally have some agreement that it's going to be it's going to be 3 lanes, but it's going to be a right turn lane here and a right turn lane there, and we're going to have to, do this with the parking and this with the, with the utilities and yada, yada, to the point where it's going to come back to us and ask for our further consideration of the design between 19th and 22nd? Or is that being considered tonight?
What you just said, that would not be our preference. Our preference would be to work with the property owners to come up with something that they can all agree on.
Okay.
And then, and if
Then
they
come
all.
back?
And well, we wouldn't necessarily have to come back unless that's something that the council is directing us to do, and then we can absolutely do that.
But I think Councilman McKinney speaks for all of us with the goals that he's trying to achieve is by taking less property from these 8 homeowners to be able to get this safe design done. But as you said, there are going to be trade-offs that you need to discuss with these homeowners to figure out, okay, sure, I can get it down instead of 12 feet, I can get it down to 6 feet if that's what you want, but here's what you're going to get. Your driveways are going to be a little bit steeper, and you may have some snow thrown on the sidewalk in the winter.
You may have drainage issues.
Might have some drainage issues.
There's a lot of things.
And they may say collectively as a unit of 8, that's fine. This extra 6 feet of our property means that much more to us, and we're willing to deal with those other things. But I think the direction from the council that I'm hearing to you guys is in that process, do what you can to minimize how much we need to take. I think that's really important to this council.
We do that with every project.
Right.
We really do.
Right. Okay, anything else?
Not at this point.
All right, so here's how this is going to work. Thank you, guys. If you just want to sit down
you
there.
bet.
Here's how this is going to work. This is Citizens Forum. This is time for anybody, for any issue that is not either part of new business or public hearing. So whether it's the Ashworth Road project or some other issue that you want to address the council on that is not part of new business or public hearings, you're going to come up to the podium here. You're going to give us your name and address for the record. And what I'm going to ask here is that if you want to speak, that you stand over here on the side and wait your turn to speak so we can see how many people want to address the council tonight on Citizens Forum. I'm going to ask that you keep it civil and respectful, and we're going to maintain decorum in the chamber. That means that no matter how great something is that somebody says, we are not going to be clapping and cheering for them. We're also not going to be booing, as bad as something may be that somebody says. We are going to maintain civility and decorum in this chamber at all times. If you don't, I will gavel you out of order. If I have to do it again, I'm going to ask you to sit back down. After the citizens speak, Brian, if you could, you and Eric write down any questions that people pose as part of this. And I will close Citizens Forum, and we will go on with the council meeting when we get to item 5C, I believe it is, old business. At that point in time, I will have you guys come up here and simply address all of the questions that were raised at that point in time. But the Citizens Forum will be closed at that time. So please get out whatever you want to get out. I would also ask that you don't repeat things, and that if there are multiple people from a household here, which I'm assuming there are multiple households here with multiple people here, that you pick one representative from your household to speak on behalf of that household, so that we don't have 2 and 3 people speaking from the same household. Okay, with that, please give us your name and address for the record, and I will hold you to the 5 minutes so that we can get everybody in, okay?
Yep.
At 5 minutes, I will cut you off and tell you, I'll give you 30 seconds and got to wrap it up. All right, name and address for the record.
Shane McClinton, 1910 Ashworth Road. After hearing Mr. McKinney's speech there, I would probably relabel this to heartburn as well. I share your heartburn. You actually addressed a lot of the concerns that I have, so I'll kind of jump right to that. But I do want to acknowledge the fact that I think we have a lot of the same goals. My concerns, the goals that I have, I want us to be safe in this community, okay? I want us to take the least amount of land. I want things to be efficient. Mr. Mayor, you said this, the tightest design possible. You mentioned that again today. I feel like we can still be more creative. I feel like there's more opportunity, not to just reduce our parking, but in order to reduce the roadway. It's at 36 feet right now with 4 lanes. We're wanting to change it to 47 feet, okay? We can do more within that range, I think, to allow more green space in here. And that's one of the things that I'd like to promote and give you some evidence to consider. So my concern, I think, again, Mr. McKinney mentioned very nicely here,
I'm concerned that just general approval, it's a blanket approval of a 3-lane through here. What does that mean for 19th to 22nd? How do we have assurance, okay, of which plan and to what extent? Yes, they're going to work with us, and they've done a great job lately of meeting very recently, and I hope to continue with that. That's my second point. I hope that we can continue with that. But I am concerned that we don't really know how much land is going to be taken when this is approved here. And as you mentioned, if you guys aren't going to meet, who's going to pull in the reins if it seems like we aren't coming to agreement and maybe there are some opportunities that are being missed and we're leaving land on the table, if you will. So I know this is busy, but from top to bottom, the oldest meeting to the newest, we've been talking about this for 2.5 years, okay? I've addressed a lot of concerns with regards to the ability and opportunities that we could potentially reduce the lane width to enhance the green space and retain more of the way that it is right now, whether it be with 3 lanes or with 4 lanes, okay? So you can see through this that we've talked about 12 lanes. This is 1st to 50th on the left, 19th to 23rd on the right. We've talked about 12 lanes to begin with. We started then switching it to having a curb offset of 1 plus 11-foot lane. We talked at one point in time, we didn't need a curb offset, and that's the way it was designed. But the fact of the matter is, it's 12-foot lanes. Nothing has changed. In all of this discussion, we're still stuck on 12-foot lanes. And we'll talk about some literature in a bit that indicates that there might be more opportunity there to get off of this fixation on 12-foot lanes, to narrow it, still be safe. Okay, that is critical. We are still going to maintain safety through this roadway. And there's been some literature that we've discussed lately that supports that could be utilized to implement, to be creative, to be innovative, to be consistent with modern design standards, including modern and recent research that's come out, indicating that narrower lanes are safe, okay? So the impact right now as it is, taking 11 feet is devastating to many of these properties, okay? If you look at how much it takes 1/6 of the frontage. We don't have a road to park on. This is where we put our family and our friends when they come over. That's gonna be gone. Trees are gonna be gone, okay? Again, family not able to park when they come over, okay? Again, further, trees that have matured that make this road beautiful are gonna be gone, taking this much land. Okay, a daycare is gonna be destroyed, the playground, with this plan, ravaging through 11 feet into that property, okay? It is very destructive right now, and I truly believe that we have an opportunity to work together. And I've already worked and I've heard some great things, okay, from engineering of these opportunities. So just a real touch quickly on some of the opportunities here and the data that support that. If we look at the graph here on the right, you see the red line. That is what those 4 to 3 studies that show improvement with the 4 to 3 lane conversion, that's the best they got to. If you look at the orange line, that's where we got to with the conversion study. This is the rate, crash rate. So now we compare it, standardized for volume of traffic, for length of roadway, for length of time, length of exposure, okay? Look at Ashworth Road, 19 to 22nd in the yellow, okay? We're already well below, okay, where they got to those 4-lane conversion studies. We're already there from a crash rate perspective. It's very safe as it is, even though the lanes are narrow. And it can be improved when we widen it, but do we need to make a dramatic change and go away from 9 to 12? Okay, can we find some more middle ground, and can we find it within the roadway, not just homeowners compromising our green space? Can we all come together? Can we all collaborate to do this? Okay, so context-sensitive design is what's being recommended by the narrow lane save lives study. Okay, I've sent this to everyone. They suggest instead of using 12-foot lanes, start with a standard of 10 and work up from there based on what you need. We probably do need some 11-foot lanes in here, okay? But we could use 10-foot lanes as a turn lane. We could use as low as 9-foot lanes for right turn lanes. We can be more creative. We can utilize this modern evidence and implement it in innovative design, just like other cities across the country are doing, okay? And have shown that it works and it is safe, okay? Looking at the studies there, they suggest that it is safe. In
Shane,
fact, increasing the 12-foot
your time is up. You got to wrap it up.
increase the risk of crashes, okay? So we could potentially actually create some harm by doing this, okay? I'm towards the end.
Give us your conclusion. You got to wrap it up.
Yeah,
I got
it's
to
right
be
here.
fair
We're
with
right here.
everybody.
So
If I let you go longer, I have
They've
to
done
let
some
somebody
great
else.
work. I want them to reveal some of the things. So some of the plans take it from 12,000 feet down to 6,000 feet. And we could even improve upon there because that still includes those 12-foot lanes across the board, okay? Please keep us informed. Please have a means of which this general approval does have some checks and balances to how much land is taken ultimately in the end. Okay, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, next speaker. Please give us your name and address for the record.
Kathy Dinner, 1935 Ashworth Road. I'm here tonight to address the ongoing discussions about the proposed widening of Ashworth Road. I used to be a critical care nurse. I'm retired now. But we used evidence-based practice, and I believe the engineers also have that in their wheelhouse. So I wouldn't have the engineers tell me what to do and how to be a critical care nurse. And so I'm not going to tell them how to do their job. I may not be an engineer, but I trust that the city's engineers are acting in the best interest of all of us. Just look around our beautiful city. It's thoughtfully planned. It's clear that careful consideration has gone into making it a place where people want to live and work. That's why changes to lane configurations are sometimes necessary. The 9-foot lanes on Ashworth may have been appropriate years ago, but traffic volume has grown significantly since then. While Ashworth may seem like a minor east-west corridor today, that could change dramatically in the next 20 years. Since the pilot conversion, even though I'm between 19th and 22nd, I have noticed a change from 19th to 22nd. I'm right there where the traffic used to build up on rush hour, and I couldn't get out of my driveway. Now, this past year, it's not going past my driveway where I can't get out. I can get out easily going eastbound or westbound. Our sidewalks, this is also an issue for me. Our sidewalks are very narrow. I sit on my porch a lot, and couples walking down there are shoulder to shoulder. I can't walk my dogs down my sidewalk because you can't pass people because somebody is on the grass. You just can't do it. You can't ride a bike. The track teams run on 19th. They're running single file. I can't ride a bike. I don't have a trail to access. We're in a desert there. I have to put a bike in my car and drive somewhere else. I have to take my dogs to the cemetery so that they have freedom to walk without being on the grass when we pass somebody. I wish that would be considered in this plan. Those sidewalks are narrow. When two people are walking shoulder to shoulder and you have somebody pass, somebody is on the grass. When there's snow on the ground, somebody's in the snow, and somebody's gonna fall and get hurt. Let's be realistic. Traffic is only going to increase, and we need to plan for that growth. I support the proposed changes because I believe in progress. I chose to build my life in this city because I trust its leadership and its vision for the future. This is about doing what's right for the long-term benefit of all our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, next speaker, come on up, give us your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Srijan Kareem. I am from 1225 28th Street, West Des Moines. Just want to start with by admitting that I was one of those people who kind of expressed some degree of skepticism of conversion of from 4 to 3 lane in Ashworth, but I'm here to talk about a topic that is kind of tangential. So according to the data that Eric had presented, the 85th percentile of the speed is 40 miles per hour, and assuming the 9,000 vehicles per day that go through Ashworth, so that means about 1,350 vehicles are going at the speed of 40 miles per hour or above. And as somebody who bikes and walks for recreational and non-recreational reasons on Ashworth, I just want to say I'm very disheartened by the fact that a multi-use pathway or dedicated protected bike path has been considered as a would nice to have instead of as a more equitable initiative for multimodal transportation. So I also want to say that I am very much in support of West Des Moines in general practice of 12-foot lane width lanes, and I feel like they're almost the same width as highway lanes, and it encourages high-speed travel. So if you want to make West Des Moines, travel through neighborhood, sure, do that. But I like to see it as some place that I want to live in. So would like to emphasize decreasing lane width, be it just the part that is being discussed or in general, and also more emphasis on an equitable environment for multimodal transport. Thank you.
Thank you, Sri John. Okay, next speaker. Name and address for the record, please.
Linda Hendel, excuse me, 3917 Ashworth Road. The thing that you're going to vote on tonight, is this all the way up to 50th is what you're voting for? Yeah. So I live on 39th and Ashworth. I was out on Ashworth Road last night with a tape measure at the middle of the night. I have 10-foot lanes in front of my house, and I see all these pictures and everybody's talking about all these 9-foot lanes, and I don't know where this picture came from, but the lanes in front of my house are all 10 feet. And then they have all this huge side yards. From the road to the sidewalk, I have less than 8 feet. So I need to know, in my area, are you gonna try to make that road bigger if we go to the 3 lanes, or is that gonna stay the same? I don't even know where to find that answer because nobody's addressed it. So for me, I don't understand why all the information says 9-foot lanes, because I have over 10 foot on all my lanes. The other thing I have is I have a 4-foot sidewalk, and everybody's saying they want a wider sidewalk. But do you want a wider sidewalk that's cutting into your yard and getting you so close that people are like walking by looking in your windows? That really freaks me out. So I have 40 feet in front of my house. So is there anything that we're talking about that's going to change the existing sidewalks in my area? Have we even talked about that?
I don't believe so, but we will have, Brian and Eric are taking down the questions, and we'll address those when we get to item 5C.
Okay.
So if you have more questions, keep asking those.
Okay. No, that was about all I had to say, because it's been very, as a citizen who lives on Ashworth Road, it's been so confusing because things are published and then I was on the call and then they were going to do this big thing and then they weren't going to do it and we keep changing our mind. And if you go to the website, there's nothing about the last meeting we just had in September. I would like to read about that, but there's nothing there. All there is this really old stuff from a long time ago that talks about when we were going to do the bike path and this, that, and we've.
Okay.
So it would be nice if they could update that.
Sure.
So, because I have a lot of elderly neighbors who can't come.
Okay.
So that would be helpful.
Yep.
Thank you.
We will figure out the answer to that too, Linda. Thank you. Okay. Next speaker, please give us your name and address for the record.
Hi there, my name is Carly Hofer, 6201 AP True Parkway. I don't live on Ashworth, and I don't live particularly close, but I drive it every single day. And I would say my commute has gone from about 10 or 12 minutes to about 20 or 25 minutes. And it is directly related to the 4 to 3 lane conversion. It's also directly related to what seems to be an unfair dynamic of the east-west lights competing against the north-south lights. So, but I have a list of things. So first of all, the city buses and the trucks block the lane that is now the exclusive west or the exclusive east, and that's just not UPS, that's DART. So and they're not there for 30 seconds or 60 seconds. They're there while 5 people get on or 5 people get off, and maybe they have to get their bike off. And so am I supposed to sit and just wait and maybe be late to work or late to my second job or late to my medical appointments or late to something else because I'm waiting for a city bus? Or am I supposed to illegally pass in the turn lane? That's a real question. Also, so then 19th Street is extremely unfair to east-west travelers. I'd say there are some days that 19th Street has like maybe 3 or 4 cars coming from the south, and there's about 10 or 20 of us waiting to go east. And the light turns green, and I'm like, great, at least half of us should be able to get through the light and go east. About 2.5 cars go through, and boom, the light is yellow, shortest yellow light I've ever seen, and then it's red. And so that 3rd car and 4th car are usually trying to ooch on through, probably illegally at that point, but who ever heard of a 3-car light? So also, the 19th Street turn lane is ignored. People who are, so like, this is the lane that's supposed to go straight, this is the lane that's supposed to turn. People ignore that this is a turn lane and they go straight and cut off the main lane. So I find that to be really unsafe and not also frustrating. I just waited in line and got cut off. So, and then in addition to 19th Street being extremely unfair at the light, I find that basically almost all the traffic lights are unfair to east-west travelers. 19th Street, 28th Street, 39th Street, and 42nd Street are all what I consider to be the worst offenders. So one car can pull up from the north or the south. They're not even looking to turn left. They want to turn right. They have no traffic, so they just go ahead and they turn. And if they didn't turn and if they sat there at the light, they wouldn't trigger the light. Because they turn, somehow they come in view of the camera and they trigger the light. And so now east-west traffic is held up for a car that didn't need the light change. So then traffic is actually really slow, in my opinion. It moves about 30 miles an hour. Just take one of the elderly residents. I like old people. Old people are great. But just take one of the elderly residents that I previously could have gotten 35 or 37 past on that roadway. And now I am behind them. And they don't, a lot of people also don't seem to understand that the turn lane is a turn lane. They stop, they slow down in the main lane, and they turn directly from the turn lane, from the main lane, ignoring the turn lane altogether. So what's the point of a turn lane that's not used for turning?
Carly, we've got a little bit less than a minute here.
That's fine.
Okay.
And so, like, these are all considered to be acceptable delays. Acceptable to who? By what standard? Who measures the acceptability of these delays? Finally, my last question is, during an accident, bad weather, or other reasons to avoid the interstate, you expect to successfully reroute interstate traffic to a 3-lane without serious delay. That now is held up by Granny going 30 miles an hour and can't recognize the difference between a main lane and a turn lane. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you so much. Your time is up. You know, I would say, Carly, there is a coworker here of Eric's who is not in the room tonight. His name is Jim Dickinson. He is what I call a traffic geek. He sits in a room with a bunch of monitors and has a joystick and can see with the cameras and the light, traffic and everything else. And we are very proud because we've got what's called adaptive traffic signals on almost every single one of our lights. We are the leader in the metro on that, but sometimes these things don't sense the cars properly and only let 3 cars through. And so you just got to contact one of us. We'll give Jim a call and ask him to take a look at those lights and see if they're switching the way they should or if they need to be recalibrated. So a lot of the issues you had have to do with that, so.
I did call,
Okay,
and I was told they would be looked at and
Okay.
possibly recalibrated.
okay,
And my commute today was the same that it has been for the last 9 months,
okay,
which was not the same commute that it was before.
okay. Well, I appreciate it. We will keep working on those traffic signals, try to get them right for you. Okay, come on up, give us your name and address for the record.
Dell Christensen, 932 32nd Street. We're right on a corner of 32nd and Ashworth. In fact, our island in the kitchen, we face out on Ashworth, so we see what the traffic problems are out there. And for one thing, when they got the turn lanes down at Valley West Drive, and yet when they had the outer lane on either side blocked off for the fiber optic, we had traffic from Valley West Drive all the way on past our house to the east, which to me is a problem. It's not handling the traffic with 3 lanes like it does with 4. And another thing, at the September 10th meeting, when they were talking about all the safety in the 3-lane down on 19th and to First Street, that's the least traveled part of Ashworth Road, as far as I can believe. We're probably in the heaviest traffic because of Valley West High School, and there's across traffic there. It's got to be one of the busiest intersections on Ashworth. And changing it to 3-lane is going to cause more problems. It's just like right now, Ashworth is used as a detour for eastbound 235 because that's been closed off, which adds a bunch of traffic to Ashworth. And if it closes down, which happens every once in a while, for an accident on 235, Ashworth gets swamped into 4 lanes. And when they talked about the safety and reduced accidents up from 1st to 19th during their test, they did not do any comparison to any other stretch of Ashworth, whether accidents increased or decreased during that time. It was just a false study is what they were doing instead of completing for all parts of Ashworth. And I don't know what the width of the streets are going to the west. This lady was saying they're 10-foot lanes out there beyond 35th. And, we've lived there since back in the 90s, and we have not had an accident on the street. We have them at the intersections. We just had one. 2 buses were turning onto Vine, and a car couldn't see beyond the buses and pulled out onto Vine, or onto Ashworth, and it was an accident. But I think we need to have some down-to-earth studying on this and not just move because of the engineers think this is what needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Del, appreciate it. Okay, next speaker, name and address for the record. We've got, looks like 2 more speakers in the chamber, and then I will go online for anybody that would like to address the council online. Go ahead.
My name is Bev Ballou. I live at 1905 Ashworth Road. And I guess most of us are here, I think, because we're concerned about property impact for the widening of the road. When this first started to become a public issue, I thought, yes, Ashworth is narrow. It needs to be maybe a little wider. I've driven on it since I was 14 years old. And I've never had an accident on it, but I'm used to the narrowness of it. So can we exist this way? Yes. Have we? Yes. The 3-lane has been efficient. But the thing that concerns me particularly the most is the use of eminent domain in any case, because we care about the value of our properties. We care about the safety of our city, but we care about the impact to our property values. We live where we live. We get our assessments every year. We pay our taxes. We trust you to run the city and keep it safe for us, but we still have to voice our rights as property owners. That is an American liberty that we prize. And so I just want it to go on the record that please consider keeping that 4-lane between 19th and if it's 23rd, and not impacting those 8 homes at a maximum. If it happens there, it's going to keep happening wherever someone decides it's a good idea to add a cityscape bike path. That's nice, but it's hard to adapt an existing city to retrofit it to a modern bike path where, maybe 1 yard, it's not a big deal, but maybe 50 yards, it's huge. And it brings a park into your front yard. It's a lot to consider. So I just ask you all to consider that for us, because you're our representatives and we appreciate that. I'm sure it is very difficult to do. So I appreciate that. It's hard for me to stand here and say, hey, this is my concern, but that is one of my concerns. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bev. Appreciate it. Okay, last speaker in the chamber, come on up. Give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Alicia Trogdon, and I live at 1000 21st Street, so right on the corner of 21st Street in Ashworth, where the proposed right turn lane onto 22nd would be. I agree, Ashworth needs to be widened, or the lanes need to be widened, maybe not the road, but the lanes do need to be widened. I drive an SUV, so it's tight. It feels tight. I feel like I'm holding my breath all the way down Ashworth. My concern is, are we doing our best to use what we have now to try to make sure we're reducing the land being taken? Like someone brought up traffic signals. Are we working traffic signals to stay green longer or red longer, whatever needs to happen? I looked at there's 4 proposals. There's a 4-lane proposal, 3 3-lane proposals that just came out this week. I looked at all of those, and I think every single one of them, actually, when you turn south from Ashworth onto 23rd, it gets backed up there kind of in the mornings and at school hours because people are trying to get down to Fair Meadows. And on all the proposals, they have like a concrete, so no one can turn that way, right? Is that something we have tried to see if that'll keep traffic moving in the mornings, like flowing instead of stopping and backing up? Because it's not very far from 235 where people are trying to pull off, and then these people, can't go because this is all backed up right here. I just want to make sure before we go and take land that can't be given back, before we devalue properties, that we are trying every other possible, maybe cheaper way to make sure that we're doing our due diligence at making sure that we're not taking land from property owners, really. I mean, because that is a lot of land to lose, whether it's me, my side yard, my daycare, or if it's the others on 19th Street where it's right at their front door. I mean, that's a lot to lose. And I think I speak for all of us when I say we're not saying that nothing needs to change. Can it stay the way it is? Yes, absolutely. But I think something can change. But are we doing our due diligence first to make sure we're doing the small impact things first? That would just be my concerns.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, going online, anybody that would like to address the council on Citizens Forum that is an issue that is not either part of new business or public hearings, hit *6, not the #6, but *6 to unmute yourself and give us your name and address for the record. Is there anybody online that would like to address the council on Citizens Forum?
Yes. This is Lori Young, and I live at 2000 Ashworth, and I own one of the houses that's going to be hit by this expansion. And so I wanted to say one thing, thank you. When y'all were discussing things in the past and y'all talked about Valley Junction, you talked about the concern for the neighbors so much, but every single time Ashworth has come up, I haven't seen or felt that the council has really gone out. And tonight, y'all really did a great job saying that y'all are concerned about us, and I want to appreciate that. Yes, Brian has been working with us for a long time, but it wasn't until the last 2 weeks of all this year and a half that stuff's been going on that we have been given choices other than taking 12 feet of our yard. This is the first time in a year and a half that the engineers have listened to us and said, you know what, maybe we don't need to take 12 feet of your yard. And they didn't even, those drawings, if one of the, like the 5,000 square foot drawing got picked that took that much of our yard, that would be one thing, but y'all are gonna vote today to say yes to a 3-road highway going through our neighborhood that you have no idea if they're going to take it all, because up to a year and a half, nobody listened to us that was too much of our yard. So it's not that we haven't had the meetings, it's that there has been no response until the last 3 weeks that they started doing some new drawings. And so that's my concern. And so if he did those drawings to appease us and is going to turn right back around to that 12-foot highway thing that's taking our road, that's not, none of us are going to like that. And it's going to be a problem for the whole council. I also want to point out that when we talked about EP True and Ashworth and how these things were the same, did y'all realize that we have 27 entrances and exits onto Ashworth Road in about 750 feet? If you take all of our circle driveways, all the roads, that's 27 entrances / exits onto Ashworth Road in 750 feet. It is a neighborhood. It is not an EP True. The September meeting that I did not go to it because we got a letter in the mail that said it was going to be First through 19th Street, and 19th and 22nd would be talked about later. So we need to be sure our communication is clear when we have these meetings, and the 8 families that are going to be directly impacted know about this. And the second thing is that since people aren't using the right turn lane onto 19th Street anyway, and we live there so we know that, why do we have to have the right turn lane there in the first place? If it was just that one lane over there, I don't think you'd have so much pushback. But taking that entire extra road is the problem. And then lastly, I wanted to say is, and I brought this up last year, is West Des Moines will not fix our water supply until this road is decided. We have ruined $1,000 worth of appliances this year. We have to spend $600 a year for filters in our refrigerator because there is so much rust in our water. The only place in the world that I have seen rust this bad in water is in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, which probably no one in this room has been to. I have never seen red water as bad as it is in our bathtubs, and we can't get that fixed until Ashworth is decided. So please, please talk to the West Des Moines Water Department and associate this up, because we don't need to have this pushed off another 10 years and run more appliances. And that's all I have to say. But please remember, 27 entrances and exits in 750 feet of roadway. It can't be a parkway. And when we slow down to get in our driveways, we are already risking getting rear-ended as it is today. And higher speeds because of wider lanes is not going to change the fact that we're going to get rear-ended getting in our own driveways. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lori. Okay, anybody else online that wants to address the council on Citizens Forum? *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, with that, Citizens Forum's closed. We're going to move on with the meeting, and then when we get to 5C, we're going to have our engineers answer some of the questions, all of the questions that were brought up that they wrote down. So with that, we're going to move on to item 3, Mayor, Council, Manager Report, other entities update. And we've got, we'll start with 3A, 2024 Citizen Survey with Dawn Davis from ETC Institute. Is Dawn online? Okay.
I am on the line. Can you hear me okay?
Go. Yep, we can.
Okay, can you see my presentation?
Not
yet.
Not yet. Yes, we can. All right, Dawn,
great.
you are in order.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Dawn Davis with the ETC Institute, and this is the 2024 is the 11th time that we have conducted the survey for the city. So I'm happy to present the results tonight. And if you're not familiar, ETC Institute was formed in 1982, and since 2006, we've surveyed more than 3 million persons in more than 1,000 cities in 49 states. For the agenda tonight, I'll discuss the purpose and methodology of the survey, give the bottom line up front, the major survey findings, and I'll summarize and take questions. For the purpose of the survey was to objectively assess resident satisfaction with the delivery of city services, to measure trends from previous surveys, to compare the city's performance to other communities, and to help determine priorities for the community. In terms of methodology, like I said, it was the 11th community survey conducted for the city, and it included many of the same questions that were asked in previous years. It was conducted via email, or I'm sorry, mail and online, and each survey took approximately 15 to 20 minutes to complete. The goal was 400 completed surveys, but we actually received 501 surveys, so we had a very good response this year. Confidence level 95%, margin of error plus or minus 4.4% overall. And when we look at the residents who completed the survey, the red dots represent block level areas where we had a good representation by location. Looking at the bottom line up front, residents have a very positive perception of the city. 95% are satisfied with the quality of life in the city. Only 1% are dissatisfied. 90% are satisfied with the overall quality of services provided, and only 1% are dissatisfied. When looking at comparisons to other communities, the city rated 41% above the US average in the overall quality of city services, and rated significantly higher than the US average, 5% or more, in all 43 areas that were compared. Looking at the overall priorities for improvement over the next 2 years, overall traffic flow management in the city, quality of the streets system, and overall enforcement of code violations. Major finding 1, residents have a very positive perception of the city. When looking at perception of residents have of the city, excuse me, sorry about that. No more than 7% are dissatisfied with any area related to perceptions of the city. And the lowest satisfaction rating of how well city is playing for growth is still at 72% satisfaction. Looking at overall satisfaction with major categories of city services. Sorry about that. Majority of residents were satisfied with all city services. Major finding 2, residents in all areas are satisfied with the overall quality of city services. When you look at the map of the city here, all areas in blue indicate that residents in all parts of the city were satisfied. This one's overall quality of city services, as well as overall quality of life in the city. Major finding 3, satisfaction with city services in Western Wayne are among the highest in the nation. A lot of blue arrows on this chart, meaning significant higher than the national average and the Plains regional average. Overall city feeling of safety in the city, image, quality city services, value received for tax dollars and fees, and how well they're planning for growth. And then we're looking at major categories of city services. Again, All categories rated significantly higher than the national and the Plains regional average. Public safety services, parks and rec programs and facilities, and customer service from city employees would be in the top 3 in this category. Public safety, again, we have significantly higher ratings than national and Plains regional average. Quality of local fire protection, emergency medical, and quickness of firefighters and emergency medical to respond to emergencies rated the highest. City maintenance, city buildings, maintenance of city buildings, curbside trash collection, city parks, cleanliness of city streets were among the highest with regard to city maintenance. Communications, availability of information on city programs and services, quality of the website, and public involvement in local decisions were all significantly higher than the Plains and national averages. When looking at the trends, most notable increases since the last survey in 2022, online services offered on the city's website, 10 points higher than in 2022, enforcing maintenance of business property, availability of information on city programs and services, quality of the city's website, traffic circulation in parking lots with regard to new commercial development, and traffic circulation between developments with regard to new commercial development were all 5% or more than they were in 2022. As far as decreases since the last survey, enforcing removal of junk cars, other nuisances, overall quality of recreation programs and services, how well the city's playing for growth, enforcement of local traffic laws, Valley Junction Activity Center, and Waterworks efforts to keep residents informed were 4% or more lower than the last survey. Major finding 5, priorities for investment. When looking at the overall major categories of city services, the top 3 priorities, of course, traffic flow management, quality of the street system, and enforcement of code violations were considered high priorities. Public safety priorities, we did not have any in the high priority category, but we went ahead and said enforcement of local traffic laws, just something to keep, continuing to work on. Parks and recreation, again, no high categories of or high priorities, but we're looking at senior citizen recreation programs that might be an issue in the future. And then maintenance city streets were the top medium priority for this category. And looking at other findings, initiatives most important for the city's police department to emphasize, top 3, additional residential patrolling by officers, additional police problem solving in neighborhoods, and neighborhood watch or business watch. Sources residents have used during the past year to get information about the city. WDM magazine was on top, and city website came in a close second. When looking at what is needed most in neighborhoods, 20% said more enforcement of traffic laws, and 20% said more enforcement of property maintenance codes. Benefits of economic development that are most important to residents, better lifestyle amenities, more jobs in the region, and new companies opening in the region were in the top 3. The types of employers or businesses residents would like to see expanded or located in Des Moines, finance and insurance services, healthcare, and retail were the most mentioned. And to summarize, residents again have a very positive perception of the city. 95% are satisfied with quality of life in the city, and 90% are satisfied with overall quality of services provided. When comparing to other communities, the city of West Des Moines is setting the standard when compared to the U.S. average and the regional averages. And the priorities for improvement over the next 2 years: traffic flow management, quality of the street system, and enforcement of code violations. Any questions?
Does the council have any questions at this time for Dawn? Dawn, I want to thank you so much for walking through this. You did a great job going through it. We appreciate the job that you guys do every single year. I know that myself and the council will take a much deeper dive on this in the months to come. We're always happy to see that we have super high satisfaction from our citizens, but I know this council, and I know we want to look at some of the areas where we're not scoring as high and see if we can focus on trying to get that up as well. So thank you so much for everything you do. Really appreciate it. And with that, I would just say have a great night.
Thank you, you too, and I appreciate the opportunity to present this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on to Mayor, Council, Manager report. I'm going to start down to my right here with City Manager Tom Haddon. Any report tonight?
No report, Your Honor.
Okay, short and sweet. Councilman Matt McKinney, any report?
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Okay. Councilwoman Hardman?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Okay. Councilman Trevelyan?
Nothing at this time.
Well, let's keep it going. Councilman Loetz?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Wow, that's unusual. Is it a full moon? All right, I'm not going to have any report either. We will move on. I'm sure these citizens want us to get to item 5C as fast as we possibly can. Moving on to item 4, consent agenda. We are going to pull item 4C5 as well as item 401. Are there any other items that any council person like to have pulled and voted on separately? Otherwise, I would take a motion to remove.
Motion to
remainder.
approve the rest.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
Four yes.
Okay, item 4C5, Come and Go LC, doing business as Come and Go, number 1097, 220 50th Street, Class E retail alcohol license renewal. Does somebody want to move approval of this item?
Motion to approve 4C5.
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Mayor, I'm just going to be abstaining. I represent
Okay.
Come and Go.
Perfect. Okay, we will show Councilman McKinney is abstaining on this vote. And with that, please vote.
Three yes, one abstention due to potential conflict of interest.
Okay, moving on to item 401. It is a proclamation celebrating Community Planning Month for October of 2024. I am going to ask for a motion and a second to approve the proclamation. Then I will read, and we will vote on that, and then take a picture down front. Can I get a motion to approve the proclamation?
So move.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and I will read. Community Planning Month Proclamation. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, boroughs, townships, rural areas, and other places, and whereas community planning and plans can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live, and whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories. And whereas American Planning Association endorses National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight how planning is essential to recovery and how planners can lead communities to equitable, resilient, and long-lasting recovery. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of planning commissions, and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional community and regional planners of the city of West Des Moines and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now therefore be it resolved that the month of October 2024 is hereby designated as Community Planning Month in the city of West Des Moines in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month, adopted this 21st day of October 2024. Okay, with that, is there any discussion? I just want to thank all of our community planners that work so hard for us every single day. We've got Ryan Moffett and Lynn Tweet, at least in the chamber. I know we might have others online as well, but they do a phenomenal job, are here often long hours, work late into the evening to move things along and get things done. So thank you for everything. Really appreciate it. Okay, please vote.
Four yes.
Okay, with that, any of the planners in the room, if you could meet us down here for a picture, that would be great, and then we will continue on with our meeting. Picture down front? Sorry. Come on, Lynn, come on down. All right. Thank you. Thank you for all of your work. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5, old business. Item 5A, Pavilion Park, west and south of the intersection of EP2 Parkway and Wendover Lane, amend the Pavilion Park Plan Unit Development to revise the configuration of the PUD parcels and establish uses and development regulations for each parcel. Pavilion Park LC and Wendover Reserves LLC. We have an ordinance for approval of the second reading, waiver of the third reading, and adoption of final form. There are no changes from the previous reading, which was adopted unanimously by the council at the last meeting. Somebody,
Move consideration of the first read, or second reading.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
Four yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2024, and ordinance numbers 2407 and 2488 pertaining to Plan Unit Development District regulations and guidelines.
Move approval of the second reading.
Okay,
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Four yes.
Move to waive the third reading, adopt in final form.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Four yes.
Okay, item 5B, termination of Woodland Hills TIF District, city initiated. We have an ordinance for approval, the second reading, waiver of the third reading, adoption of final form. There are no outstanding issues and no changes from the previous reading, which was adopted unanimously by the council.
Move consideration, second reading.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I would just say that this was an extremely controversial TIF that we approved very early on after Kevin and I got elected. It was a very contentious situation. We had homeowners that were stranded with some or no infrastructure out there, and we're wondering whether or not this TIF was going to work. It was a little bit risky, and I'll tell you what, it worked and was a huge success, and I can't believe that we are now terminating this TIF. That's how long it's been. So,
Thanks for the good work you did back then, because it was a problem. Michael's Landing and everything in that area, and to see $211 million that was generated in increment through that, it's incredible.
yep, it was a very successful project. We were very grateful to the private sector that partnered with us on this and had a lot of homes built out there. So, thank you for your comments. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
4 yes, an ordinance repealing ordinance numbers 1935, 2315, 2400, and 2414, providing that general property taxes shall no longer be divided on all property located within the Woodland Hills urban renewal area in the city of West Des Moines.
Move approval of the second reading.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
4 yes.
Move waiving the third reading and adopt in final form.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, item 5C, we've got a motion, we have approval of traffic code amendment, official traffic controls, Jordan Creek Parkway South and Grand Avenue. We once again have an ordinance for approval, second reading, waive the third reading, adoption of final form. There are no outstanding issues and no changes from the previous reading, which was adopted unanimously by the council at the last meeting.
Move consideration of the second reading.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
4 yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2024 by amending provisions pertaining to the traffic code relating to official traffic controls.
Move approval of the second reading.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
4 yes.
Move to waive the third reading and adopt in final form.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, we're almost getting to the item you guys are here for. Sorry about that. Item 5D, we've got a motion to approve traffic code amendment, U-turn prohibited at Jordan Creek Parkway and 850 feet south of EP True Parkway, southbound. Again, we got an ordinance for approval, the second reading, waiver the third, adoption of final form. There are no outstanding issues and no changes from the previous reading, which was adopted unanimously by the council.
Move consideration, second reading.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, please vote.
4 yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2024 by amending provisions pertaining to the traffic code relating to official traffic controls.
Move approval of the second reading.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
4 yes.
Move waiving the third reading and adopt in final form.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, here we are. Item 5E. We've got a motion for approval of design criteria, Ashworth Road from First Street to 50th Street. As I said at the beginning, we've had at least 2 workshops and a public hearing on this issue, and we've been working on this issue for at least a couple years now. We did a study to study the 3-lane configuration for about 9 months, and as detailed here tonight, while we haven't studied the rest of the road, this segment of road has worked very well. So we've got a motion for approval design criteria for a 3-lane cross-section on Ashworth, again, from 1st to 50th, and there are no outstanding issues. Can I get a motion and a second, and then we will go to our engineers to have them address any of the questions that were brought up during Citizens Forum?
Motion to approve the design criteria from 1st to 50th, from
Okay.
4 lanes to 3.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. With that, we can have the engineers come up and address some of the questions that arose.
So I will, again, Brian Hemeseth, city engineer, I'll take the bulk of these and turn to Eric if I need any help. Nate Hardesty with Shive Hatter, he's also here. He probably took better notes than me, so I'm going to go through this. And
Sure.
if I missed anything, he'll let me know.
And Nate is more than welcome to come up and help as well.
Okay.
So,
All right, so the first item that I had on here was the 11-foot lanes with a 1-foot curb offset that's basically disguised as 12-foot lanes. So the one thing I did want to mention, and Shane and I have had this conversation. We've looked at the Johns Hopkins study, and I believe a lot of it is very valid. And I would actually like to use that study for some of the work that we're doing with development services to come up with code and context-sensitive design for certain areas of town. I think that'll help us a lot to get the proper lane widths, the proper cross-sections, and that sort of thing. So I really appreciate Shane actually bringing that to our attention, because I think it's got a lot of really good uses out throughout the city. But with that being said, under one of the sections in that study, it says recommendations for government officials or so on and so forth. And one of those recommendations is in with streets that have transit, have truck traffic, have snow, that a minimum of 11-foot lanes is recommended. And that matches with all of the design standards that we have too as minimally acceptable. So we think an 11-foot lane width is minimally acceptable for travel lanes.
Help us understand as a council, what is a standard lane width today? Because I think we're getting caught up on, 11 feet lanes with a 1 foot
Sure.
curb. And, we had Linda that was up here that talked about her lanes are 10 feet. And
Yep.
are we not, if I go out there with the tape measure, am I not measuring this correctly? How do we measure this, and what is standard today?
Sure. So I'll start off with the question. I think you brought it up. So there are varying lane widths on Ashworth from First Street all the way out to 98th Street, actually. So from First Street to, and help me out, I believe it's to Valley West Drive, they're 9-foot lanes. From Valley West Drive to 50th Street are 10-foot lanes. So our recommendation in the areas where there are 10-foot lanes would be to actually pull the curbs in to create more green space in those areas and do a 3-lane cross-section through there. Now, in your particular area, you're at 39th and Ashworth. That is a really high accident intersection there. And we believe that running 3 lanes through that intersection especially will help cut down on the traffic accidents, because right now those cars are offset when they're sitting at the left, waiting for the left turns. It'll actually move the cars head to head opposite each other, and that should significantly decrease. Better visual, it's just a lot better situation.
Okay, so after we're done, from First to 50th, the footprint of the road is all going to be essentially the same all the way up and down, with exception of areas where we need a right turn lane.
Correct.
Okay, so in this case, Linda's area is going to be brought in and then restriped to the same 3-lane configuration with the middle turn lane.
And then there was a question about sidewalk width, and the plan is, unless the council directs us otherwise, is to have 4-foot wide sidewalks like there is today. Depending on how we have to reconstruct things, we may have to reconstruct the sidewalks as well. It kind of depends on how the grading goes and if we have to raise or lower the road and that sort of thing. But our plan is to put in 4-foot sidewalks.
Brian, doesn't though, this ADA says that for wheelchair and whatnot passing, you need to have 5-foot sidewalks?
Correct. So we would put in passing spaces where they're needed. We'll try to put those passing spaces in the driveways where there are driveways, but if there are no driveways, we'll actually have to build those passing spaces into it, unless the council directs us to go with a 5-foot wide sidewalk, which we'd be happy to do that as well. So,
well, and I don't think we need to be talking about 5-foot sidewalks here when we're trying to gain space, but I'm jealous of some of the other communities around here. When they're doing new developments now, they are doing 5-foot sidewalks. I mean, all of ours are like 4 for the most part, right?
Yep. And we've had discussions about that, and there's higher developer costs, so on and so forth.
Right.
We've had this discussion.
Passes on to the homeowner when the homeowner needs to replace sidewalk. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can revisit it at any point. We'd be happy to bring it back. So.
Okay.
So let's see, are we going to make, Oh, they, and I did that one.
What about
Let's see.
Shane, what about Shane talking about, you know, can we have from, you know, First to 19th be, you know, 12-foot lanes, and then from 19th to 22nd to change the lane width there, only to then come back out when we go on further out west?
So the city council can direct staff to do whatever they see fit. So, but your engineers that you hire to give you the advice to do this is we're telling you that we recommend 11-foot wide lanes for the travel lanes. The two-way left turn lanes, we recommend 12-foot lanes. And the reason for that, that curb offset was also a question. So I want to address the curb offset. So the curb offset is there for multiple reasons. There are intake grates in that foot to foot and a half against the curb. Today, so we don't want people driving over those curb intake grates, if at all possible.
Aren't they designed to be, though? I mean, we've got streets all over town that you've got.
You bet. They are designed for that, but those are a weak point in the road. Why would we push those out and have them getting pounded by every car? It's just not a good design.
Okay.
So the other thing would be snow removal. I know it doesn't snow as much as it used to, or it doesn't seem to have, but when we have snow, God bless the public services folks. They do a really good job of getting the snow off the roads, but there's always maybe a foot or so that they have to leave there just to get the roads open, and then they have to come back and clean everything off to get it back to the curb. So you're going to be sitting there with a foot and a half of snow from the curb to just inside the curb during those snowstorms until they have a chance to go back and do that. So that's another reason. Another reason would be stormwater. When it is raining, we need a place for water to flow that doesn't creep out into the street. Now it does during very heavy rains, but we'd like to have some space for that stormwater to sit. The other thing is today, the curb height is about 2 inches out there because we had probably a 6-inch curb and we've had multiple overlays on that. So when I'm driving my car, cars have really nice wheels on them these days. And when you drive along a 2-inch curb, you're not as worried about scraping getting road rash on your wheels or anything like that, or jumping the curb when the curb's only this tall. When you start to get a curb this tall or this tall, like the 6 to 8 inch curbs that we're proposing on this stretch, people tend to shy away from that. And then it essentially narrows up the lane by people just shying away from that curb. So that's why that curb offset is there. Those are the main reasons.
What about Shane's point about having the turn lanes being 9 foot? Why would that not be acceptable?
I might let Eric handle that one just because of his expertise.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's kind of the same reasons as why you don't want to narrow up the through lanes. If anything, in those turning lanes, that's where you've got these larger vehicles that are either turning on or turning off. And so if anything, you want more of that space. You want to have that width for them to make that turn and not skinny that up as they're trying to make their turn, or some of these larger vehicles that will kind of swing out a little bit to make their turn. So if anything, I think you'd want to maintain that through lane dimension.
So just to reiterate, and what the mayor asked me about earlier, there's 2 different standards. There's the preferred and then the minimally acceptable. We're actually at the minimally acceptable level right now. We're not at the preferred. So that is, according to our design standards that we follow, that is where we're at. So, and to go less than that wouldn't be something that, I can't recommend as.
So if you were recommending 12-foot lanes, you're saying that you'd have 12 foot within a 1 foot curb offset for basically 13 feet is what you're saying?
No, 11-foot lanes with a 1 foot curb offset, and then a 12-foot wide 2-way left turn lane. That's minimally acceptable for a 2-way left turn lane. And then the same on the other side, 11-foot lane with a 1 foot curb offset.
So it's still a 12-foot lane. Okay.
And I would say that in some streets, it is acceptable to go less than that. So on a truck route like Ashworth Road, where you got the trucks and buses, that's where the 11 foot is. If you're in a residential subdivision, then you can skinny that up even more, and I've seen some place where you go 10-foot
But that's the point.
lanes.
It's a 12-foot lane because
It's
you've got
11,
your,
it's an 11-foot lane with a 1-foot curb offset.
Brian, I don't care.
I'm just.
Okay,
that's the
wait,
count.
I got to get straight on this. Okay, so from basically First all the way out through 50th, you're going to have one lane this way, one lane this way, and one lane in the middle.
Correct.
Those lanes are going to be the standard lanes, which is what?
Minimally acceptable lane.
11-foot
11,
lanes?
12, 11, with a 1-foot curb offset on each side.
11, 12, 11.
Correct.
But the 11s have a 1-foot curb offset.
Correct.
And so technically it's 12, 12, 12.
Well, from curb face to curb face, yes, it would be 36 foot.
36 from curb face to curb face.
Typically, when you look at the lane width, you're not including that curb offset because
Okay.
if you had it, let's say you had like a 4-lane road or something where you've got those inside lanes where you're measuring from the paint line to the paint line, and that's 12 foot. That would truly be a 12-foot lane. But once you have a curb along one side of that lane, like Brian's saying, people will shy away from that. That's not
sure.
effectively a 12-foot lane anymore. Now that's more like an 11-foot lane. And so that's why we're saying if you've got a curb lane,
Okay.
you have to account for that 1 foot.
So we're going to have 11, 12, 11, all the way out. And the turn lanes are going to be 12 like the center lane, the right turn lane.
Correct.
Are going to be 12 like
Well,
the center.
no,
No?
the right turn lanes would be, they would be,
Again, that's a curb lane.
That's again
11 plus one.
right, but.
Okay,
but-
so-
but
When
in
I
the-
went to school, that's 12. I don't care what you call it. 11 plus 1 is 12. 12 plus 0 with your center is still 12.
It's not, though.
Yes, it is.
Well, so Kevin, I'm sorry,
right.
Councilman Trevilian, known you for a long time, I apologize. So when we add that right turn lane, it will be the curb offset, 1 foot, 11 foot, but then that through lane is 11 feet, not 12. And then you'll have the 12-foot two-way left turn lane, 11-foot lane, 1-foot curb offset.
Okay. So we've got 11 and 1, 12, 11 and 1, 11 and 1 for the right turn lane.
Close.
This isn't that complicated. Okay. All right.
Yeah, what is a curb?
Okay. Hold on, Linda. Hold on. No, we will not have people yelling from the audience. We will be a civilized city. Okay.
Is there any more questions about that specifically from the city council?
You say it again, okay?
Okay, so in the section where we're doing a turn lane, it'll be a 1-foot curb offset.
Okay.
An 11-foot lane,
Okay.
an 11-foot lane,
Okay.
a 12-foot lane, an 11-foot lane, and a 1-foot curb offset.
Okay. You hear
So
it
there's
here to
not
hear,
the
folks.
curb offset in that
Gotcha.
through lane that's in the
Difference is the
middle.
curb offset.
Correct.
Okay. We're good. Okay, what other questions do you have there? Then I'm going
Sure.
to open up to the council to ask other questions that they may have recalled that citizens asked.
So one of the questions was
Or that they
about
have
the
themselves.
meeting from September on the website. We just
right.
checked that it is on there.
It is
Yeah,
on
it's
there.
It's all the way on the bottom, but all the information that we had from that meeting is on the website.
Okay,
So I apologize sometimes if you were on that website, maybe sometimes you have to hit a refresh or maybe
Okay.
clean the cache out of your browser, and sometimes that will update that, so.
okay. So it is there. Linda, if you have a hard time finding it, just give me a call.
Alrighty, I will.
All right, appreciate it.
Let's see. And then there was several questions about the wait time on Ashworth Road. And I think we had very similar questions from a resident, and Eric can expand on this, but basically saying that the traffic signal timings weren't very good on Ashworth.
Right, that was Carly.
Yeah, and we went through that and changed some timings, and then got an email from that person a couple days after we made the changes, and actually they said, yeah, that it's much better. Now,
Okay.
I can't speak for the issues that the resident that spoke about that had, but Eric, I don't know if you want to expand on that at all.
Yeah, I think sometimes when these older traffic signals especially is all of our signals have some form of detection at the signals, and that helps to time the traffic signal. So it detects where the vehicles are to optimize that traffic signal. And a lot of times when you get older traffic signals, the detectors start to go bad. You have to go in and make some adjustments because it might say, I have a car here, we have to give them a green light, but there's actually no car there. And so it's fairly common. We'll see that, especially, when we're getting some issues with a particular type of detector. We have different kinds, like road sensor detectors, we've got camera detectors, radar detectors. We use different forms, but they all take some tweaking every once in a while to go in and fix something like that.
Okay.
So my recommendation to any residents that have issues with that kind of signal timing is just make a mental note of the time it happened, the intersection it happened at, and let it, you can send it to me or to Jim Dickinson. And that helps them a lot because they can actually go into the archives and watch what happened and see the issues to see if there is something that needs to be tweaked. So that's something that can easily be fixed.
I have had Jim Dickinson look at this many, many times for residents and make adjustments. So, okay, what else?
There was a comment about the turn lane being ignored on eastbound at 19th and Ashworth. That's basically there's a right turn lane dedicated, and we had to set it up that way in a through lane because it has to transition into that 3-lane cross section. And I think Eric alluded to that in the presentation. Sometimes we were having that issue, but when this is all reconstructed, the curb lines will make it impossible for people to do that sort of maneuver.
Okay, so that'll be taken care of.
They will see in front of them that there is a curb, and there is no way for them to kind of sneak in or eke in. So that was just a product of the just doing the restriping and not being able to make everything perfect on that quick restriping.
Okay, what about Dell had a comment that we studied 1st through 19th, but didn't study any other segment of road?
Right, and I don't know if Eric has the traffic numbers in front of him, but we do have traffic numbers for that whole stretch.
Yeah,
So
and we didn't specifically call that out, but we do track crashes around West Des Moines, so we do know there have continued to be crashes. I know Dell had mentioned the one at Vine and Ashworth that occurred. That was one that was correctable if you go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. We continue to have crashes at 39th and Ashworth there at Valley High School. So we do have these crashes that we know we can resolve if we go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes.
Okay, so we're going to be able to resolve the crashes, and Dell also had a concern about traffic backing up that they couldn't handle the traffic.
Yeah, that was a situation where there's currently 4 lanes out there, so they closed the 2 outside lanes. So effectively, you only had 2 lanes. That's not 3 lanes. You didn't have that center 2-way left turn lane to get people out of the way to make their left.
Sure.
So if somebody had to turn left, they just were stopping traffic till heck won't happen, basically, until that person got a break in the other side, which was probably backed up because of that as well.
And not just 2 lanes, but they were 2 narrow lanes. So you've got cones right next to a very narrow 9-foot lane.
Right.
Which also slows things down.
There was a question about what is an acceptable delay. So Eric mentioned an acceptable delay. So years ago, and I don't know if Kevin and Russ were on the council at that time, but back when we were doing the mall traffic studies, like in 2003-ish timeframe, we brought to the city council what is an acceptable level of service, and they approved a level of service D as the acceptable level of service. Then that's what we design all of our traffic signals to. Level of service D isn't great, but it also means that there's some areas where it's acceptable for a short period of time. So that is what it is, and none of our sections were below level of service D with that. So that's what acceptable means to us.
Okay.
Let's see. Got that. What we call the pork chop island at 23rd and Ashworth. So basically keeping people from, go Cyclones. Cyclone fight song.
Okay.
So the pork chop island at 23rd and Ashworth, there's and I might let Eric.
And there's some that want this,
Yes.
and there are some that don't.
Right, because it'll adjust traffic to other streets that go, and we think it'll actually go down 19th Street, which is where the traffic should go, because that's the arterial street.
Right.
Instead of going down that more local street at 23rd. People use that as a shortcut, and we'd like to try to keep that from being a shortcut.
Right.
So everybody's going down to the school. If you have anything else to add to
I guess
that.
we talked about that a little bit in the presentation too, that we just need to dig into that more and see what else we need to do. It's not an ideal today, because again, that's really close to 22nd Street. You'll get people that are going eastbound that want to go north on 22nd. Same time, you got somebody going westbound wants to go south, and so there's a lot of jockeying that goes on there. So what can we do to make that area safer?
So based on this and the negotiation that you're going to have with the 8 houses that are between 19th and 22nd, what I would request going forward, if this is passed by the council, that you put this as a regular item on the Public Services Subcommittee so that the council can be made aware of kind of what's going on. Are you going to do the pork chop? Are you not going to do the pork chop? And you know, obviously to the council, it's extremely important that you do everything you can to take as little property as possible from these 8 homes between 19th and 22nd. I think we would direct you today to, you know, take 6 feet or less, but we don't know what is going to be needed, number one, and we also don't want to commit to something that then the residents don't want, because what that 6 feet instead of 11 means is steeper driveways and problems with snow and drainage and all kinds of things. But at least, you know, if the council's not going to see this again, I would just ask that you guys bring this before the Public Services City Council Subcommittee as a regular standing item. You know, maybe there isn't an update at every meeting that they have, but whenever there is an update,
Be happy to do that.
Yeah, keep us in the loop on that.
One of the things was, why did we not reach out to the public for a year and a half? Well, we were doing this study for about a year and a half because we did 9 months before and after. So that's the reason why, is because we wanted to get this study done and get the results back and then present that. And then what we really wanted to do is bring it to council, get the recommendation, and then start digging into the design and then working with all the residents on how we can minimize right-of-way. We've started doing that with Shane and other neighbors. And so the fact that we were doing that in the last couple of weeks, it's just, there was a lot of questions about what's the right-of-way going to be. So we started digging into that before the meeting, to not to appease people, but just to look at what some of the options could be and what the ramifications would be to start the conversation rolling. So we'll do all that after this vote. And then the notifications for the September meeting said that we're looking at the results of the 1st to 19th, and that it would be applied over 1st to 50th, and that we weren't going to specifically talk about 19th to 23rd. So if that deterred people, that wasn't our intent. Our intent was to talk about just the 3-lane to 4-lane conversion as in general. So I apologize if that wasn't clear. And then the last thing I have on my list is the water issues. So West Des Moines Waterworks has wanted to make this change to that water main for several years now, but we have been waiting so we wouldn't tear up the world out there twice.
Yeah.
Because it is very disruptive to redo that water main. So we didn't want to redo that, get it all cleaned up, and then come back out and close the road and do a bunch of stuff in front of, do it 2 different construction seasons. So we were trying to, but you know, this was back when we thought we maybe were going to do this 2 years ago. So that's just how that happened. But
and this project is going to be done in like 10 phases over like a 10-year.
yeah, it'll be multiple phases. I don't have the exact number of phases,
but it's going to be like a 10-year project.
It'll be at least 10 years to get it all done, and then to get the funding we need to do it. Our plan is to continue to ask for STVG dollars, which is only a 20% match by the city, which is a really great deal for the taxpayers, is to take that federal money and apply that to the city. So, yeah, that's our plan.
Okay, council, what other questions do you have or that you remember a resident asking that maybe didn't get answered? Councilman McKinney, anything?
I think maybe the only thing that stands out is what is the 1 foot, I don't even know the technical term.
Curb offset?
The curb offset, you know, what is the purpose of that? But I really just have some comments I'd like to share at the appropriate time.
Councilman Hardman, any questions you have at this time, or? No? Okay, Councilman Trevilian.
So Brian, as far as the water main thing, so we're going to do a water main replacement in conjunction with that street paving at that time.
That is correct. So that we can get it all, we just rip the Band-Aid off all at once.
And then Waterworks will be paying us for it, or are we going to do it in
We'll do it.
Partners, I mean, are they
We'll do
going to
it in
do
part- it's
the
one-
water main and then we'll do the street? Are we doing one project?
One project, but then Waterworks is going to reimburse us for those costs.
Okay.
But how does that work with the phases? I guess that's where I'm,
Well, they've already replaced main.
They've replaced everything except for the area that we're planning on doing.
Okay,
So
okay.
it'll be
Yeah,
very,
everything to the east and west
very
will be done.
seamless.
Right, so the Johns Hopkins study that you talked about, it included cities like Denver, Colorado, I believe, correct? Okay, and last I knew, they have snow and water. And they've got, I believe, 11-foot lanes with no offset. So why are we different and we need the 1-foot offset?
Like I said, that's what your city engineer is telling you we need. That is effectively an 11-foot lane when you have 12 foot from the face of curb to the lane line. That's effectively what is being used. I mean, we can agree to disagree, Councilman, and that's really where we're at.
And then also, doesn't AASHTO indicate that the turn lane can be 10 foot? Why do we have to have 12?
We are using the statewide urban design standards, and those are the standards that we're using, and those are the ones that are widely accepted across the state. And we're using the minimally acceptable standards from that design standard.
A lot of it depends on the road too, because what could be the minimum for one type of road might be different than the minimum for a different type of road if you're talking about trucks, buses, or residential subdivisions. So
But when SUDAS was written, that was a group of engineers decided that this is what they thought needed to be done. Now you got federal stuff that kind of in my opinion, kind of overrides that, but we're not following that. Well,
Right.
I mean,
And so my to address that, basically from an engineering standpoint, from my experience, I do not want to put the city in a liability situation where there could be an accident in an area where we're below minimally acceptable standards. That's not somewhere where I want to be recommending that the city go. And that's why I'm where I'm at, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Okay.
well, and we just had to do a settlement on a design of a road that was up to the standards, and we still had to do a settlement.
Right,
So I agree. I don't think that the taxpayers need to be in that position.
right.
That would not be wise.
So that's just, that's
Okay.
my recommendation.
Okay, Kevin, any other questions?
no, I just think we've got way too many unanswered questions for this entire stretch to be taking a vote from 150 blocks when we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think if this motion passes, it needs to pass knowing that every design is going to come back to the council for us to vote up or down before we just give a blank check of yes, go ahead and do what you want.
That's not the way that I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the engineers designing this the smartest way possible. And in the section where we're dealing with homeowners that are looking at losing land due to the turn lane, they're going to meet with these homeowners and collectively come up with, what is acceptable to the homeowners. And you're going to have to go with what's acceptable to the majority of the homeowners, whether it be a steeper driveway, snow on the sidewalk, issues with drainage. But I trust our engineering staff to work through this project and to give, you're on the Public Services City Council Subcommittee, give you updates as to what's going on. But I don't anticipate that it's going to be a back and forth and bring it to the council for a vote on every single thing. That's what we pay these guys for. And so that's what I'm looking to have done.
And I can assure you that whatever we come up with is not going to be accepted by all residents. It's just, we can't make all residents happy. What will happen is if we start shifting things around, there will be people that weren't going to get right of way, weren't going to get right of way purchase from them, that are now going to get right of way purchase from them, and they will be upset about that. And that's just, those are things we're going to have to work through, and I'm ready for that. So we've done way more complicated projects than this, and I'm ready for it. So
Okay, Kevin, before we move on, I want to know what is unanswered that we need to have answered tonight?
What's the plan for I realize that we're years away, but what's the plan for Val Air? And what is the design that we're going to do for 19 to 23? 19 to 23. I don't agree with it.
All right, what else?
I'm used to 4-1 vote, and I'll be another one, I guess. I mean, that's that's really it. And again, I don't know that we need the 1 foot curb offset. I think we can do 11 and be fine again so.
Okay. All right, Doug.
My only question is the item 5E on the agenda tonight. This is approving the go-ahead to start design
Well,
for
it's
4 to 3 conversion, right? I've not seen a plan for this other than what was thrown out a year and a half ago. So I think all we're saying is start figuring out what this looks like for everybody. And then that's my first question.
Yep. So what you're approving tonight is just telling us, do you want us to look at a 4-lane cross-section for that entirety or a 3-lane cross-section for the entirety? And then we will get started on the design and get started working with the property owners. There's no other approval that's happening. It's just the
Great.
3 versus the 4.
And then the last question is, in this 4 to 3 design criteria, there will be, as the mayor asked, several meetings and a public forum and other ways that people will come and be able to talk through this. I definitely want those things. So the other comment I'll make is just, I do not like, I stopped out at Alicia's place the other day, there you are over there, and talked to her with the sign. I do not like us taking land if we can avoid it. So make sure that you guys do the right thing for the city and everybody, and make sure that you're always keeping in mind the people who are impacted.
Right. There's a lot of things we can do. There's just going to be some trade-offs, and those are things that we have to talk with the homeowners about if they're willing to accept those trade-offs.
I remember it like it was yesterday when I moved here in 1997. And I drove down Ashworth and I felt bewildered because I thought, is this road so narrow? And at the time I didn't know. I thought it was like every other road, but no, it was narrow. And every time I drive it today, the 4 to 3 conversion, I drive it at least twice a day, probably sometimes 6 or 8. And it's like a dream, the 4 to 3. So.
And I will tell you, the 3-lane conversion for that whole stretch is going to save us from having to purchase right-of-way from over 200 homes along that stretch. So I understand that we are purchasing from 8 in this area, but the big picture, this is a really good thing for the city as a whole, and that's where our recommendation's at.
Okay, final comments here, and we're going to wrap up and we're going to vote. Go ahead, Councilman.
Happy to start. Yeah, happy to start. We've had a lot of conversations here. I've had a lot of conversations on Ashworth, on the phone, emails, texts. And I appreciate the time that you all have put into this, right? And as well as Brian, you and your team, we've been out on Ashworth, walking it, looking, Alicia, at your fence and the playground in the backyard. Shane, walking through your property and along the area. And so I want everybody here to know this is not a decision that's been made in haste. This is a decision that has taken a significant period of time, that has been very well studied by all sides, if you will. And Shane, you've put a tremendous amount of time into your analysis and the information, and I appreciate the approach, the conversations we've had, the presentation this evening, and just the back and forth amongst everybody. I think that, when I look at this from an objective standpoint, which is what we have to look at it from, objectively, we know that there are trucks in this area, there are buses in this area, other vehicles are wider, frankly. We all know that. We also know that the information that we have is that we have decreasing conflict points as a result of this 4 to 3 conversion. You have better visibility in the area. I attended the September 9th, 10th meeting here in the chambers, heard from a lot of folks, mixed feelings. Many were supportive, several were continuing to be concerned. But the objective information shows that the speeds are slower. 15% or so slower when you're talking about over 40 miles an hour. Objectively, we have fewer accidents. 7 accidents with an average of 2.6 that are with injury over a 10-year period. And during this trial period, we had 4 crashes with no injuries. so it's safer for a city as a whole. And I want to say I appreciate the fact that we went through this study. It was about a year ago. We all talked, and I'll just say that for me, I was not able to get comfortable with the 4 to 3 lane conversion without first doing a study, without first trying to understand the facts and the information to see how this would play out. And I'm glad we did this. I learned a lot. I think a lot of residents learned a lot. I heard that back in September in these council chambers when people said, I was actually surprised that I could pull out of my driveway at 19th, as we heard, I think Kathy shared tonight. It's not perfect for everybody, but overall, it's a much safer solution for everyone. There are 2 important criteria, and Councilman Loetz, I appreciate you made the motion. I did not second the motion because it's important for me that motion include that this does come back, at least the section between 19th and 22nd Street, to the Public Services Council. And if there are problems, that we are able to, if necessary, bring it back to the full council if there's a problem. I don't want to do that, but I think we ought to be able to, in an extreme event, be able to bring it back here. I think we should absolutely regularly be apprised of any meetings and changes that are going on. I'd hope that we don't have to bring everything back here to this council. I hope that these updates to the Public Services Council subcommittee will work to find that middle ground so everybody could be in a spot of comfort as best we can be. So that's the first thing. I'd really like to make sure that we have that come back before Public Services. The second thing is, and this is more on the city, is I want to try to find ways that we can work with Chief Scott, the police department, to ensure that enforcement is happening in that particular area, especially as this conversion is happening. Over the course of time, people will get accustomed to the fact that they can't stop and park on Ashworth and get out and do whatever it is that they're doing. So those 2 things are really important to me as we move forward, and for my support to move this. I think the 4 to 3 is something I'm supportive of. The 19th to 22nd is something that we have to work through and to continue to negotiate, as I think the term that Mayor you used yourself. So that's where I'm at, and I appreciate the time everybody put into this.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments, Councilman. Councilwoman Hardman, any closing remarks from you?
Absolutely. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being in the audience tonight. Again, it's another meeting whereby folks that are affected by this are here to voice their concerns and to voice their issues, pro and for. I have driven down Ashworth probably 50 times just to get a sense and a feel of it, and I've driven down other streets to get a sense or feel of it. I've had conversation with Brian. We've been at this study for a while. And I'm glad there was a study. Just a couple of meetings ago, there was concerns that we authorized a study to learn more about something else that's different. But in this case, there was a study that provided some meaningful information by which that we can learn more from. And sitting in this seat is not easy because no matter how you vote, there are going to be some people happy and there are going to be some people that are frustrated. That's why we have people that don't even want to sit in these seats, because it is hard, but we do have to make a decision. And we have to weigh the decisions based on what we're hearing from the study. Is safety a concern? Is this something, if we don't do now, what can we do? I was particularly impressed with the gentleman that spoke first, that gave a very nice PowerPoint slide that said, let's talk about some design things. I appreciate you saying that you've had some healthy discussions with the city staff. Thank you for that. And I appreciate that you have come to the table with not a no, but a let's talk and see if there is some degree of movement that would settle some of this anxiety. That's how this is going to be worked through. I think, as I've listened, there are some safety issues that are at play here. Public safety really kind of supports this particular initiative. There's been a study that talks about what 4 to 3 does. There's not one person on this council that gets elected to say they want to do eminent domain. Not one person. Not one person gets elected to say, we're going to take away 6 feet, 12 feet, 11 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet from someone's home. I think that's the very last thing that anyone sitting on this council wants to do, enjoys doing, or sets out to do that. Unfortunately, there is a situation with the road that will impact 7 or 8 folks, maybe more, I don't know. But I think there needs to be discussions as these design factors are at play. And that, as you have heard from most people on this dais, that we want minimal removal of folks' property in ways that we can, minimal. I am not an engineer, so I don't know how to do that. So I'm not going to tell Brian how to do it because that's not what I know how to do. Okay, but I can say to Brian and his team that the way in which these design factors need to have some transparency, need to have some engagement, needs to have folks come and talk more about it with an open spirit that everybody is not going to be happy. Everybody is not going to get what they want. Even the 8 people are going to maybe have in that small group a different way of which this is to come. But I think cooler and calmer thoughts will prevail, will help this process. I like that there's going to be some more communication going to a subcommittee. There are 25, 30 subcommittees here, and all of us sit on 4 or 5. And that public services is going to be the conduit to hearing some of the kinds of things that are going on, that are being proposed, that are being shared, and some of the feedback that they're hearing. I think that is an element of transparency to this process that I welcome, that I think would be helpful. So again, I just want to say thank you for being here. It's very difficult, but as I begin to vote on 4 to 3, I have to take into consideration some of the things that I'm hearing about public safety and some of the kinds of things that I'm hearing that creates a better roadway pathway for the citizens in West Des Moines.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Trevilian.
Nothing more to add.
Okay. Councilman Lotz, anything?
I just want to take a second to thank everyone for coming out to express your opinions. I've had numerous emails from Shane, and Alicia was nice enough to show me her property. And you know, one of the things that makes me proud to sit on this council is the 4 other folks sitting up here next to me. They really do listen to your concerns, and they take those things to heart. And I'm thankful to serve with you all and consider these things. These are the hard decisions. Jokingly, I'm thinking city council is becoming a spectator sport because between the last 2 meetings, we've had a lot of people. And that's how this thing is supposed to work. So thank you all for coming out.
So I would just add my comments, and that is, first I want to thank staff. Staff has been extremely patient with the council, has worked through a number of concerns, has held a number of workshops, public meetings, has held private meetings with individual citizens who have requested them, sometimes even meeting on a weekend off work hours. If there's one thing that you cannot accuse this council of, that's not being thoughtful. This council is extremely thoughtful on every issue that comes before it. At times, we're so thoughtful that it can be a little bit frustrating. Staff has put up with us in the many hours of discussion, the many days of meetings, and we even spent 9 months studying how this all worked. As Councilwoman Hardman said, this is not easy. You're gonna, any vote you make, you're gonna make somebody happy and you're gonna make somebody sad. And that sucks about this job. It really does. If this were easy, you'd have a lot of people volunteering to do it, and it's not. Any time where we're dealing with having to negotiate to have a property owner sell us their property for a public improvement, this is what eminent domain is for roads and sewers and that kind of thing. It still isn't easy. We understand how much your properties all mean to you. We get it. This sucks. But public safety is pretty darn important too. And so is traffic flow. You know, I've had a number of people since we did this striping and this testing for 9 months that contacted me. One person said, my God, I wish you'd be mayor for life. This is the greatest thing you guys have ever done. Driving down Ashworth is absolutely unbelievable. I don't feel like my mirror is going to collide with somebody else's mirror. I feel comfortable driving up and down, and it's worked like a dream. Again, you've got some people very happy. You've got 8 people here that maybe aren't so happy. But we trust the engineers. We hire them for their expertise. There are standards that are in place, and what we're doing is standard for lanes today. It's going to make everything more safe. It's going to make traffic flow much better than it does today. So I think this is the right thing to do, to go from 4 lanes to 3. And I really, really mean this when I say it. Staff, you really need to work with these 8 homeowners to try to do everything you can to make that design as tight as you possibly can. Homeowners, you're going to have to work with each other to come to a consensus on what you're willing to sacrifice to have less property taken. As Councilwoman Hardman said, I mean, maybe some people are good with, you know, hey, this is only going to take 5-6 feet, and our driveways are a little bit steeper, but I'm good with that. Some people may not be good with that. You're going to have to work with each other on that to come up with consensus, and we're going to work to do what we can to pinch that design and make it as tight as possible. So with that, we've got a motion and a second. There's been a ton of discussion. A lot of thought has gone into this. Please vote.
Mayor, can I ask, is there a legal requirement it comes back before public safety or public
There
services?
is no legal requirement. We are approving the design of this road, and we are going to have some oversight over it, some updates that are going to be provided to the Public Services City Council Subcommittee, which I believe is comprised of Kevin as chair, right? And you yourself. So you two will both be on there to get these updates. If there is some major issue that cannot be resolved by the engineers with the direction that we've given them, then we will look at possibly bringing it back for the council to make a vote. But that is not the intention. The intention is for the engineers, with our direction, to work with these residents to do their job, to pinch that design, make it as tight as possible, and for the residents to figure out what sacrifices they're willing to make to have as little land taken from them as possible. And it's got to be within reason for the city, too. We've got 8 people that we're trying to keep in mind, and we've got, 70,000 people that are also relying on us tonight to make the right decision.
I get that, but the reason I'm asking is there's nothing in the packet that dictates that it's going to come back for public services. And it's why I said I would entertain a motion to amend, or entertain an amendment to the motion required to come back.
If there's not a subcommittee meeting to review these designs, I will vote no.
That's how I feel. And I want to make sure that we have the opportunity.
This is the attorney in him, folks.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Who
we
made
need to
the
have a
motion?
protection.
You made the motion, Councilman? Okay, will you take back your second?
Sure.
Okay, will you please amend your motion to
I
include
will
these
amend my
meetings?
motion. I will make a motion to pass item 5E with the condition it is presented, design recommendations are presented at the subcommittee meetings prior to bringing them to the full council.
We're not going to bring it to the full council, so that you're going to approve the 4-3 with a standing agenda item for the Public Services City Council Subcommittee, giving an update to the council folks on this project.
Okay, let me try this again. I withdraw my previous motion. I am making a motion to approve the 4-3 design criteria with the
Regular
updates coming to the subcommittee.
Perfect. All right, staff understands that direction. Is there a second? Councilwoman, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Please, for the love of God, vote.
Three yes, 1 no.
Okay. Thank you, residents, for hanging in there with us. Thank you for going through all that. Shane, thank you for all the study and everybody contacting us, reaching out. That's how the process is meant to be. So we appreciate all of the feedback and input you've given us, and we look forward to you guys working with staff on this. Okay, moving on to item 6, public hearings. Item 6A. This is a time and a place for a public hearing to consider development agreement regarding the construction of public roadway improvements at Bridgewood Boulevard initiated by Pavilion Park LC and Waukee Community School District. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice is published?
October 16th, 2024 in the Des Moines Register.
And received any written comments to this hearing?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, anybody in the audience who would like to address the council on item 6A, please come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. Anybody online, please hit *6 to unmute yourself and do the same. Is there anybody that would like to address the council on item 6A? Okay, hearing and seeing no one, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed. We've got a resolution approving an infrastructure development agreement between the city, Pavilion Park, and the Waukee Community School District for public roadway improvements at Bridgewood Boulevard. There are no outstanding issues, and this was approved unanimously by the Finance Administration City Council Subcommittee. Can I get a motion?
Move approval.
Okay,
Second.
so moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, item 6B. This is the time and the place for a public hearing to consider development agreement regarding the construction of public roadway improvements at EP True Parkway initiated by Pavilion Park LC and Waukee Community School District. Ryan, did you please read the date the notice is published?
October 16th, 2024 in the Des Moines Register.
And have we received any written comment to this hearing?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, anybody that would like to address the council on item 6B, please come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. Anybody online, please hit *6 to unmute yourself. Again, *6, not #6. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to address the council on item 6B? Going once? Going twice? I will declare the public hearing closed. We've got a resolution approving an infrastructure development agreement between the city, Pavilion Park, and Waukee Community School District for public roadway improvements at EP True Parkway. There are no outstanding issues, and this was approved unanimously by the Finance and Administration City Council Subcommittee. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution?
Move approval.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, item 7, new business, item 7A, Prime 39, Plat 1, 930 76th Street, accept surety and release final plat to create 38 footprint lots for multifamily development, 6 outlots for common space and stormwater detention, and 2 outlots for private streets, JLP Holdings LLC. We have a resolution to accept surety and approve and release the final plat, and there are no outstanding issues. Somebody want to move approval of the resolution?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there anybody from the audience or online that would like to address the council on item 7A? Okay, is there any discussion on the dais? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
Four yes.
Okay, item 7B, Eagle Brook, south of Veterans Parkway and east of Southeast 35th Street, approve a preliminary plat to create 168 lots for single-family residential development, 8 outlots and 16 street lots. Eagle Brook LLC and Charles I. Colby and Ruth Colby Investment Trust. We've got a resolution for approval of the preliminary plat, and there are no outstanding issues. There is one condition of approval, and that is that the developer agrees not to have driveway access off of Southeast 35th Street. This was also approved unanimously by the Planning and Zoning at their last meeting.
Move approval.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to address the council on item 7B? If you're online, hit *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, hearing no one and seeing no movement, is there any discussion on the dais on this item? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, item 7C, Isles Funeral Home, 7200 and 7010 Ashworth Road. Approve a preliminary plat to create 1 lot for commercial development. Approve a site plan to allow construction of an approximately 8,400 square foot funeral home. Isles Funeral Home Real Estate LLC. We've got approval of the preliminary plat and site plan. There are no outstanding issues, and this was approved unanimously by both the Development and Planning City Council Subcommittee and the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Move approval.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to address the council on item 7C? Is there any discussion on the dais? Okay, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, item 7D, Valley Church Community Center Building Addition, 4444 Fuller Road. Approve major modification of the site plan to allow 23,500 square feet of addition to the existing community center building. Civil engineers, consultants. We've got a resolution for approval of the major modification of the site plan. There are no outstanding issues, but there are 2 conditions of approval. First condition of approval is the city council deferring the widening of Fuller Road until the next major modification by the church. The second condition of approval is the applicant agreeing that they are responsible for all public improvements related to this major modification. This was also approved unanimously by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their last meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there anybody in the chamber or online that would like to address the council on item 7D? Okay, hearing and seeing no one. Is there any discussion on the dais?
Yeah, I want to thank the Finance and Administration Subcommittee, Councilman Lodes and Councilman Hudson, for the work that they did relative to basically considering costs as it relates to widening and the appropriate timing and such related to that. And also City Manager Haddon, I know you participated in several meetings on this. I know there was a lot of time that was put into it. I appreciate where we got, and just a thank you to everybody that was involved in this.
I want to thank everybody, and I also want to scold everybody. So this, we worked years and years ago with the school, with Jordan Creek Elementary. They wanted to expand their playground, and so we worked with them to help them expand their playground and allow them to put a fence up around the playground. But we said the next time that there is a major modification that, this road's going to have to be improved and have to be expanded. Here we have the church doing expansion. I certainly feel for the church and don't want the church or the schools to have to pay something, but at the same time, I'm not sure when the next major modification is going to come, if ever. And I think that Fuller Road does need to be widened. I think this is probably the appropriate time, but this is the process that we have. I respect very much all of you as my colleagues and the decisions that you've made and all of the feedback and input that went into this and all the work that went into it from the city manager's office and others. So I respect your decision. I'm not sure that I completely agree with it. So
Agree with what?
to allow for basically kicking the can down the road another time until the next major modification is done. And then at that point in time, the school and the church need to work to come up with how we're going to widen this road. I think the road needs to be widened. And I think we were willing to split it a third, even though the city really isn't responsible for doing that. I thought we had a reasonable solution to this.
Well, and also wasn't it the church and school that came to us wanting us to pave for the pay for the widening?
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
Yep.
So they're saying, yeah, we need it to be widened because of the traffic that they're creating. And now, yeah, Russ, like you say,
When's it going to happen?
it's not going to happen now because the school and the church either couldn't come to terms or didn't want to pay for any of it. So
Yeah. I would just say to our friends, the church, which are great friends of the community, as well as our friends in the West Des Moines Community School District, who are great partners, great friends. We work very well together. You're getting a pass this time. You're getting a pass again. You better prepare for the future. The next time there's a major modification by either one of you, it's only right. We've got to come up with a plan now for paying for this road if there should ever be another major modification.
Well, but at the same time, though, if something changes between now and their next major modification, we're going to be right back to where we were.
Yeah.
That needs widened. Well, there's nothing forcing them to help pay for it because there's no major modification.
Yeah.
So how does it get paid? I mean, that's why I don't think this should be approved.
It doesn't get widened.
I think it should.
It doesn't get widened.
I think it should stand with what, unless they. Because I'm not ever going to support 100% the city paying for it. I don't think we should pay for any of it. But
No, because that's the taxpayers paying for it.
right.
There is no city. I mean, it's,
So
okay,
is
but I
this
do
a
respect,
motion?
the motion is to approve this so that we're allowing them to do the church do the major modification, and the road is not going to be widened until there's another major modification, either by the church or by the school that necessitates the widening of the road. So we're basically just putting it off a little bit longer. I will say that the addition that they're doing, when they first did this community center, I really questioned whether or not it was truly going to be a community center. It is. I mean, the community really does use it and uses it quite a bit, and the church is very generous in how they allow people to use this community center. And the additions they're going to do are going to be absolutely phenomenal and will benefit the community. So, like I said, I respect the process. I respect you guys as colleagues and all the work that went into this, all the discussion that went on. I'm not sure when, if ever, this road's going to get widened, and I think it does need to get widened in the near future. But you know what? I did not anticipate they would do this massive community center and then do an addition. So maybe there will be more to come in the future, or maybe something will have to happen with the school. But I'm just telling this church and the school, we got to start planning in the future. Start putting money away and planning that at some point in time in the future, this road's going to need to be widened. And I would extend the same agreement, a third, a third, a third. I think that's more than fair. But
And I think, Your Honor, that's the conversation we had with them.
yeah,
And you know, we had a big crowd tonight. It would have been even bigger.
I know.
And I don't disagree with your sentiment in any way. It was quite a struggle to get through this. I appreciate Councilman McKinney's comments, and you know, there was a lot of discussion around it, and so I think my exact words were, "Start saving your pennies." Right?
That's
So.
perfect. That's perfect. All right. With that, please vote.
Four yes.
Okay, moving on. Item 7E, Plata Survey Parcel 2024-87-4205 Quail Court, approved Plata Survey to create 0.14 acre parcel, the transfer of ownership, Fredes Vindo Enamorado Diaz and Denise Enamorado. We have got a resolution for approval and release of the Plata survey, and there are no outstanding issues. There are two conditions of approval, and the first condition is that the owner acknowledging and agreeing that the approval of this Plata survey is only for transfer of ownership. The second condition of approval relates to the recordation of the change in ownership and a lot tie agreement to combine the Plata survey for the parcel being created to Lot 43 in Quail Park Plat 1. With that, can I get approval of the resolution?
Motion for approval.
Second. Seconds. Moved and seconded. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to address the council on item 7E? Okay, seeing and hearing no one. Is there any discussion on the dais?
Just a question for the folks on the committee that looked at this. It said adverse possession in the pinky here. This is unusual and it surprised me, and it's in my ward, so I was paying attention. Is there anything like we know about this anymore?
It's in my neighborhood, and I have not heard of it.
Okay.
So, I mean, adverse possession, somebody using a parcel of land continuously for more than 10 years, and I believe claims it and was awarded this extra land. That's why you don't want to, if your neighbor is mowing into your lawn and doing you a favor, you better stop them. Because if they do that continuously for 10 years, you can get an easement by prescription or adverse possession.
Lynn Tweet, Director of Development Services. This is a case where landscaping was put on the other property. They used it for years and years, and then when the house sold, somebody wanted to come back and get it, and it became a, nope, we've been doing it for so long, went to the courts. The courts ordered that they have to give it over to the property owner that put his landscaping on the wrong property, so.
Oh, wow. Okay. Don't let
I
somebody
thought
build
the
a
same
fence on your
thing,
yard
Councilman.
accidentally.
I thought the same thing, my goodness. And that is why you do have to pay attention to things like that in your yard.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, yep. Is there any other discussion before we vote? All right, please vote.
4 yes.
Okay, item 7F, Plata Survey Parcel 2024-165, adjacent to 7799 Southwest 112th Street. Cumming, approved Plata Survey to create a 0.284 acre parcel for the transfer of ownership, Tung Nguyen and Nan Tran. People are really challenging me with the names tonight. We have a resolution for approval and release of the Plata survey, and there are no outstanding issues, but there is one condition of approval regarding executing and recording a lot tie agreement associated with this.
Move approval.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? Moved and second. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to address council on item 7F? Okay, hearing and seeing no one, is there any discussion on the dais? Okay, please vote.
Kenny?
4 yes.
Okay, item 7G has been removed from the agenda. Item 8, receive, file, and/or refer. Item 8A, we have received Betsy Happy's resignation from the Human Services Advisory Board, and we will receive and file that. And I want to thank Betsy for her service on the board and all she's done for the elderly, disabled, low income in our community.
Likewise.
Yep. With that, item 9, other matters. Are there any other matters that any council person would like to bring up at this time? I guess I do have one. And the one item, and I'll be quick, but, I apologize, I missed the last meeting. It was my wife and my anniversary, and unfortunately, I could not be here. There was a mailing that went out that I felt was a little bit unethical and very misleading, that drove over 100 people into the council chambers on an issue that we did not have on our agenda. We spent an hour and 20 minutes on that issue. Again, very thoughtful council, always happy to welcome the feedback and input of residents. This is for a study. This is for a study to determine the feasibility of bridges in 3 different locations. We have no idea if these bridges are going to be feasible in any one of these locations. So I felt like the discussion might have been a little bit premature, but I think a good discussion was had. During that discussion, the statement that I provided, knowing that the mailing was sent to 5,000 individuals, and that if even 1% showed up, given this mailing with fake lines drawn on the map showing where the bridges go, which we don't know where they go, and saying that we were going to ruin the natural resources in our drinking water, we'd have 50 people. If 2%, there'd be about 100 people. So I wrote a statement. In that statement, I explained that we did not have an agenda item dealing with that, like the mailing said, and that if putting these bridges in would ruin our drinking water and our natural resources, those things would be determined as not feasible, and we would not be doing them. I said at that point in time, there's a sign up over here, and if people that are here would please sign up, we will make sure that you are informed anytime that we discuss this issue, and especially when that study comes back in March. But if there were people here that felt like they absolutely had questions that needed to be asked or they needed to be heard, please come to the podium, and you'll be able to do that at Citizens Forum. Councilman Trevelyan, I think you misinterpreted or misread my statement and made a comment when I wasn't here that I didn't want people to speak. And I want to thank Councilman Hudson and Councilwoman Hardman for standing up for me. That is absolutely not the position that I had. And I was really disappointed that in my absence that kind of thing would be made. I don't think that's appropriate when someone's here and can't defend themselves, to misrepresent them and not give them a chance to defend themselves. I'm happy that conversation was had. I think it was a little bit premature, as no bridges might be feasible in any one of those locations. And surely, if they destroyed our natural resources and our drinking water, they would not be determined as feasible by this council. So anyway, thank you for those that stuck up for me in my absence. I really appreciate it. With that, we are adjourned.